Alright, welcome ladies and gentlemen. We are back for a clan war between RTK and QSA. We have a lineup set for you up on the screen now. So the first one is going to be Bretonnia versus Chaos. We'll have Prussian Prince on the Bretonian side and Arocrastic will be taken over on Chaos. And followed by that we will be having a few more 1v1s followed by two 2v2s and finally it will be a 3v3 to wrap things up. So each of the 1v1s is going to be worth 1 point, and then we'll have the two 2v2s be worth 2 points apiece, and the final 3v3 will be worth 3 total points, so a lot on the line for that final game. And both of our contestants are ready to go, so we'll be getting right on into that. And before I do forget, there we go. All set and ready on that end as well. So yeah, and then after that, the Wood Elf versus Skaven is going to be Ulrich Rahl versus Hadries. And then on the Greenskin versus High Elves, it is going to be Vicious Satsuma versus Aristodemos. And then we'll be getting into the last 1v1, which is going to be Bob Tresh on top of the Lizardmen with Wicked, going to be on the Tomb Kings. So both sides ready, we're going to load on in, and then we'll switch on over to that main screen. Yeah, and then we will get over who is going to be playing in the 2v2s and 3v3s after this. But let's load on into the main screen and get ready to go. Alright, so for Chaos, going to be led by Arocrastic. It is going to be a rather wide line, but we are going to be seeing the Hell Cannon, and for the Lord, it is going to be Kolek Suneater, who is going to be bringing Standard Die, the Lord of the Storm, nice little bombardment spell there, and then Foe Seeker. So we're not going to be seeing the Star Crusher on him today. Instead, just going to be going for more of a trimmed down version. And then for the rest of the units, we are going to be having those Chaos Warriors with Halberds. Very common pick, especially against Bretonnia, who's going to be fielding a lot of cavalry, and they will hold up very well against that, as there is going to be 5 in total. And then we do have some Chaos Marauders for the rest of the infantry department. And then for the spell casting, it is going to be a Chaos Sorcerer of Death coming in with just Spirit Leech, looking to be kind of whittling down that cav even further. And that is going to be the army for Chaos. There is also a Chaos Armored Troll as well, with some nice quick mobility with those Chaos Warhounds with poison. Just adding that poison to the mix and a lot of quick speed to kind of chase things off and help in that regard. But then swinging on over to Bretonnia. So the Bretonians, we have the Knights of the Realm on the flanks. Lots of cavalry here. 2 Knights of the Realm back there. And then in the rear is going to be 4 questing Knights. So a ton of mobility on Bretonnia's side with some Peasant Bowmen with Pox Arrows mixed in with some regular variants. Pretty standard on that side. And we are just going to be seeing the Fey Enchantress. She is going to be bringing Earthblood, it looks like. And I see the Awakening of the Wood, which will be good against the Chaos Marauders and the Chaos Warhounds to an extent as well, but the Halberds will be a lot more resistant to that. We also have a Shield of Thorns, which will help the Questing Knights and the rest of the Knights of the Realm against those Halberd units, because it does give them a little bit of extra physical resist and base weapon damage to boot, and Arcane Conduit. And of course, she does have the Mist of the Lady, which does get a nice little bit of a drain to the rest of the Chaos forces. And then there's just going to be a couple Spearmen at Arms and Peasant Bowmen, and that is going to be it for the Bretonians. So both sides are ready to go, and we are going to be getting on in earnest here. Hell Cannon's going to be starting to open up momentarily here as the Bretonians, nice wide spread out formation, they're going to be looking to take advantage of their high mobility over these Chaos forces. Hey, Ben the Barman, welcome to the stream. This is going to be a fantastic good series today, I'm sure. Lots of very good competitors on both sides. And now the Hell Cannon taking its first shot. Looks like it's going to be just going after, actually, the Spearmen at Arms going to be doing a nice bit of damage into this nice grouped up formation. Otherwise, the rest of the Peasant Bowmen staying nice and far back. We take a look at that range of that Hell Cannon. We'll be seeing it on the map right here. So they are staying just outside of that range, going to be letting the rest of the Peasant mobs and even the Spearmen at Arms taking most of that blows. But just 2 volleys into that Spearmen at Arms is going to be enough to get these guys wavering, and another shot or 2 might just cause that unit to outright break off the initial engagements here. While Chaos is just going to be sitting nice and comfortable in the back, just going to be letting their Halberds and that Hell Cannon do as much as they can. Because Bretonnia really doesn't have anything that can snipe out that Hell Cannon without getting into it with melee. We do get a little Awakening of the Wood into these Chaos Marauders, doing just a little bit of damage, not a whole lot there. Kolek is going to be charging forward, not a whole lot to really counteract him at this point here, so he's going to be pretty much have free reign to do whatever he wants at this time here, so just getting any free shots in as he can is what he'll be doing here, while now the Peasant Bowmen starting to take that shots from the Hell Cannon as they start to push up, as the rest of the cavalry starts to get into position. Knights of the Realm kind of getting a surround off on the flanks, and then all of the questing knights are going to be looking for more of that frontal engagement, going to be trying to just kind of cycle charge their way in. So really, the Chaos Warriors with halberds are going to be the toughest nut to crack. And I mean, the Hell Cannon is going to be a threat to be sure, but at this point, I think the biggest worry is going to be those halberds and Kolek himself. After that, but we're getting a second Awakening Wood. This time, not really doing a whole lot there. As I've said before, those Chaos Warriors with halberds not going to be really taking too much damage from that Awakening of the Wood. But now the Questing Knight's going to start cycling that front line, going to try whittling them down. Chaos Warhounds with Poison try to respond. Spirit Leech did go down off onto those Questing Knights, going to be whittling them down bit by bit. That's going to be a long game of attrition here as both sides just try and wear the other one down, getting chip shots where they can. A nice little charge here by the Knights of the Realm into the unbraced Chaos Warriors, and they're going to be pulling right back out just after a little chip shot in, and then they will be coming back in for more blood. And right now, Chaos is trying to respond to all of the attacks on all the fronts. The Chaos Warhounds with Poison trying to catch these Knights of the Realm, going to be slowing them down with their poison, and Kolek is going to be coming in as well. So there's all of the mobility is going to be pulled away for the Chaos Forces, which is now going to allow the Bretonnians to kind of cycle in more freely, but the only thing to really respond is the Chaos Trolls. And I mean, of course, you do have the Chaos Warriors with halberds, going to be a rather big deterrent, but the cycle charging is going to be a little bit more free reign at this point. Another Awakening of the Wood, hitting those Chaos Marauders, doing a little bit more damage there. And more shots continuing to rain in on the Peasant Bowmen, going between unit to unit. So far, nothing has actually, as I was saying, that one unit has broken, one of the Peasant Bowmen with pox arrows, and so does go the other one. So that's really a good choice of targets on that Hell Cannon, is getting rid of the two poison sources for the Bretonnians. One is coming back right now, the other should be coming back as well, but for the time being, the poison is off the field for Bretonnia, so these engagements will be a little bit more lopsided towards Chaos, as all these Warhounds with poison going to be adding their poison into that mix. We do get one of the bombardments from Kolek, trying to kind of clip these peasant mobs, not really doing a lot of damage there. But you get, as kind of expected, the Chaos Marauders are going to be starting to get broken down, but the Chaos Warriors with halberds are still staying very, very strong, as the Questing Knights try to kind of just whittle them down bit by bit. And so far, Kolek is sitting nice and healthy, and the Fae is actually taking quite a bit of damage herself. She definitely needs to get out of there, does not want to be that close to Kolek, as Kolek is going to be doing a major amount of damage to her, as she needs to get right on out into the protection of the rest of her units. But so much of the Bretonnian cavalry is taking quite a bit of damage, while the Chaos Warriors with halberds are sitting nice and pretty, and that balance of power definitely showing it in favor of Chaos here at this stage in the match. With that, I mean, Hell Cannon doing a lot of good work throughout the course of the fight, and the halberds still staying very, very strong in this late game, unable to really punch through that all those heavy armored halberds. And the Chaos Trolls now coming in with the support of their lord, doing even more damage to all that cav units, and I think this is going to be just about done and dusted. I don't think the Bretonnians have the power left to get through all of those halberd units, and I think that is going to be just about it. Balance power heavily in Chaos's side at this point, and yeah, all the Peasant Bowmen aren't going to be able to whittle down this heavy armor, and with Kolek still at full health, the tools necessary to bring him down are pretty much all gone as well, and another hit or two into the Fae is going to be probably pushing army losses here, and looks like QSA going to be taking game one. And oh yeah, welcome Aristodemos, and there is that hit, shattering the Fae, and that is going to be our game. Army losses taking hold of Bretonnia, and QSA will be first on the board. Let's take a little look at that after battle report, and we'll update the scorecard as well for the first series. All right. So on the Bretonnia side, led by Prussian Prince, Questing Knights unfortunately did not do very well at all. They just weren't able to really get into or do enough damage to those Chaos Warriors with halberds to really make it worth their while. And then the rest of the Knights of the Realm as well didn't really do all too much work. Some of the peasants did okay, but they were kind of that focus of that Hell Cannon. And speaking of that Hell Cannon, let's take a look. Only 951. Now, of course, that is into some nice cheap Peasant Bowmen, but leaving those Peasant Bowmen alive, that value value that, or the potential that those peasant bowmen had is upwards of like 1,000 per unit, and so definitely getting rid of those is very good for the Chaos forces. Otherwise, nothing really did so well on Bretonnia's side. Now for the rest of the Chaos forces, dogs doing decent work across them, and all of them just, yeah, I mean, having that quick mobility, and especially the poison, because they had the poison, while the peasant bowmen with the poison arrows did get pushed off by that hell cannon early on, and all of these Chaos Warriors with halberds, this one getting 1,500, doing very well there. Kolek getting 1,600, and then the Chaos Sorcerer Death getting 600. So that is our first game. So let's go back to the middle screen, and then we can get our next contestants in, which should be Ulrich Rahl, which there was a little concern if he was going to be around or not, against Hadries. So the lobby is up. So I'll get an invite out to them. Yes, the elite halberds coming in strong for Chaos for sure. Let's see. Do I have them? Hey, Peterborough. Welcome. Oh yeah, you've been around. All right. We have one person in, so we have Hadries in. Let's see, do I see Ulrich? We do have a replacement for Ulrich if he is not available. Yeah, not seeing him online. Here to die to elf things. Alright. Well, by the looks of things... Okay, so I guess while we're waiting for Ulrich, we might be doing our third 1v1 first. If they are ready, so that is Greenskins versus the High Elves. So I believe that's going to be Satsuma and Aristodemos. If you're ready to go for game 3, and then we'll come back to the Wood Elves versus Skaven. Alright, so slot is up, Aristodemos, if you want to hop on in. And then we'll get the map set for that one as well, which will be Mortis Waste on this side. Oop, I thought I saw someone coming in. All right. So yeah, we'll get Aristodemos in, and then we will be getting on in. And so yeah, for this matchup, it is going to be Greenskins versus High Elves. Definitely a Greenskin favored matchup to be sure. Kind of that, all that regenning units, all of the, I mean, just the versatility of the Greenskins really comes into play here. The High Elves kind of have to go for don't necessarily say like a cheesy build, but they need to kind of go for maybe a little less traditional or straightforward methods to kind of pull this one out. They definitely have the tools necessary to do it, especially like having a plethora of options for the fire damage. So yeah, I mean, while we're waiting there, we'll also go over what the 2v2s are going to be for these next matchups. So the first 2v2 is going to be Vicious Satsuma and Yumai's for High Elves and Dwarfs, and then Aristodemos and Reginald Puckington is going to be on Empire and Dark Elves for QSA. And then for the second 2v2, it is going to be Jay Phoenix and Bob Tresh on the Counts and Tomb Kings versus A-Move and Wicked for the Lizardmen Greenskins. So yes, another point on all of these matchups is it was completely blind picks. So both sides would submit their factions to essentially a common source, and then whatever the orders were, that's what it ended up being. So neither side knew what they'd be against. The only thing they knew was the maps. So you could maybe get a guess on which map it was going, like depending on the map. Okay, which faction's probably going to be here versus the other one. So like with Oakenhammer, you get a nice big open map. Versus some other of the smaller maps, you might expect something a little different, like Pillar of Bones, a little on the smaller side, still decently sized, but you can kind of guess on that side. Oops. All right, so I got to get, I guess Restamos can't see the lobby, so we'll add that real quick. All right. So yeah, getting back to the matchups here real quick. So yeah, for the 3v3, we do have Vicious Satsuma, Felix, and Jay Phoenix for the RTK side on Skaven, Empire, and Vampire Coast. And then on QSA, it is going to be Aristodemos, Reginald Puckington, and Wicked on Wood Elves, Vampire Counts, and Norsca for that final one. And that one will be on MP Peak Pass, a massive map. Going to be a nice wide front line on both sides and lots of ranged on RTK side for sure. So yeah, a move. High Elves too strong, need nerf. All right. Get that set back up. All right. All right, both our next contestants are in the lobby. So Satsuma is ready to go. Now we're just going to be waiting on Aristodemos to get his his army set up, and then we'll be getting right on in to this next match, which is technically Game 3, but it's the second one of the day. So if you're just joining, QSA did take the first one, so that was Aerocrastic won as Chaos against Prussian Prince's Bretonnia. And that was the first one, and then yeah, this will be our second match of the day. Plenty more to come. It's gonna be some good fun, especially getting into the 2v2s and 3v3s. You start seeing a bit of different play styles a bit, especially with, like, for example, like Counts and Tomb Kings. It's something that, like, the Tomb Kings generally don't have access to. Wait a minute. Aristodemos on the wrong faction there. Hey, welcome to the stream. almost said Aristodemos. I guess was thinking he might have been on Wood Elves here. But that's the other thing with this, the Clan War, is each faction can only be played once, so you can't double up on that. Contestants can play in multiple ones, so we'll have people playing in the 1v1s, 2v2s, and 3v3s. I think Wicked's playing in all 3 different setups, so he'll be getting nice and busy with all of those different play styles, and working with other factions should be some good fun there. Oh, red crosses, that is correct. I forgot about that from the last one. So, for the first one, I'll update it. There it is. There we go. Thanks for the reminder to that one. Had those set up last time, and I forgot that I had them here for this one. A little show of how each fight's going to be going. To hang the failed knights. Oh, yes. They have failed in their duty to the lady. Alright, so as soon as our Stemos is ready, we'll be getting right on in. This one will be on Mortis Waste, which is just a flat map in the deserts of the Hekara. So should be some good open field. Nothing in terms of terrain to really kind of work around. So both sides will have all their cards on the table from the get-go, unless there's some sneaky little units with stock. I know the High Elves do have quite a few, or not quite a few. They have like Shadow Warriors and stuff, and then on the Greenskin side, you have those Night Goblins, which will be hidden amongst the sands of the Hekara. Alright, so now we're loading on in, so we'll switch this scene on over. Alright. So for the High Elves, we are going to be having an Archmage of Fire up in the sky on her eagle. And for her ability, she is going to be bringing Fireball, Burning Head, and Cascading Fire Cloak. And she also does have, once I get that out of the way, the Book of Hoeth, which gives a nice little bit of increased power recharge rate, and as well as the Armor of the Stars, which does give them stock and unspottable when you do pop that. So they kind of get some good positioning and allow for a good cast of like a Fireball or Burning Head, for example, a little bit less prepared for the other side. For the infantry and the mobility forces, we do have some Silver Helms on the flanks here for the mobility, and we also have some Illyrian Reaver archers in the front, and there is one unit of those Shadow Warriors that I was kind of touching on before, so they do have stock, so they'll be able to kind of position themselves, get some shots in where they need to. For the infantry, we do have Rangers, a good unit at kind of clearing out the chaff, and then for the rest of the infantry, it is going to be just some Spearmen, and then I believe I did see a Arcane Phoenix, I believe that one was. Yes, so we have an Arcane Phoenix on the far side, going to be coming on in with that magical and fire attacks. Will be very good against any of the regenerating units, like Troll Hag, Grom, any of the trolls in general. Will be a good target for that one. Now for the Greenskins, going to be led by Vicious Satsuma. We do have a Night Goblin Shaman coming in with Vindictive Glare, and I believe that is Sneaky Stabbin'. Yep, and that is Sneaky Stabbin', given a little bit of extra armor piercing and melee attack in case there are some of those higher armors like Phoenix Guard are a possibility and actually kind of common in this matchup. And we also do have that Wand of Jet, which while it does increase the ability recharge, does give a lot bit more in terms of power recharge and the recharge rate. And we have a Giant River Troll Hag coming in with Mither and Spirit Leech. Rest of the units is going to be some Orc Boys for the frontline troops. We do have some Goblins as well for some chaff. We have the Night Goblins. This is going to be the 8-Peak Loonies ROR, who do have stock themselves. And then we have some Orc Biggins in the back, a couple of units of those. And of course we do have Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers on the flanks for that poison mobility, and they are really hard to kind of bring down. Even the Illyrian Reaver archers are going to have a hard time doing that. For the mobility, we just have one Orc Boar Boy Biggin, who is going to have to contend with 3 of the Silver Helms. He's going to have his work cut out for sure. And then for the Lord, it is going to be Skarsnik coming in with that Fermented Fungi and Curse of the Bad Moon. Or Spite of the Bad Moon. Curse of the Bad Moon is the spell, Spite of the Bad Moon. So we get 25% armor-piercing weapon damage, bonus versus large, and base weapon damage increase as well. And of course, get back here for a little bit of extra leadership. Yeah, that Vindictive Glare is definitely going to be a major threat to that Archmage of Fire, and to a lesser extent the Arcane Phoenix. But yeah, that Archmage of Fire, nice large flying target, a perfect choice for that ability for the Vindictive Glare, who has quite a bit of damage for a very, very cheap spell. So it looks like the High Elves starting to kind of rotate around just a little bit onto the Greenskins' right flank. We're putting a little bit of pressure on both sides, though, with the Illyrian Reaver Archers, and the still hidden Shadow Warriors can be moving on forward. And there is that Vindictive Glare arcing its way in. Going to be making some good connection, doing a nice little bit of chip damage. One of the shots does kind of extend beyond its reach and does miss. Otherwise, most of those shots it does get in. It is really hard to dodge that Vindictive Glare, though, with how fast it is and the tracking on that thing. So it's a lot easier said than done to track those. I mean, based on the stagger, as you saw in that last one, the stagger actually is going to probably allow you to dodge more shots. Yeah, if she wants. Well, want isn't as easy as can. So the shots now are just going to be kind of just arcing its way up towards his Arcane Phoenix. It is going to be duking and dodging those shots. Those shots will probably best be spent elsewhere, as they are going to be pulling back, just staying away from that Arcane Phoenix. And the Giant Trollhag as well needs to be a little bit cautious as well. But there's plenty of units on the ground to kind of get in on it. We do have some Night Goblin Archers as well, which I did miss before, with the Rusty Arrows, which does have that Armor Sundering, which is going to be quite helpful. But these Illyrian Reaver Archers do get stuck in with the Force Goblin Spider Riders, and they have poison in melee as well, so that is going to be giving these guys quite a bit of the business here, as the Orc Boy is going to be charging in through those Force Goblin Spider Riders. Should be making quick work of those Illyrian Reaver Archers in melee, but these Orc Boys on the far side getting beaten down very, very quickly by those Rangers, especially with the Shadow Warriors firing on into the mixed. And a nice charge by the Silver Helm, getting pretty much free damage there onto these goblins, and the Rangers will make quick work of what is left. Orc Boys are going to be coming in to finish that, or just contend with these Rangers, but with that second Ranger coming in, things looking pretty grim for that High Elf, or for the Greenskin front line, as these Rangers are doing a major number, and there's a beautiful Burning Head going right through those Goblin Archers, and is going to be continuing its way through the Rusty Arrows and hitting the Force Goblin Spider Riders. Going to be routing two of the units and just continuing right on down the line. Spearmen coming in to pressure these guys back, and that was a beautiful Burning Head by Aristodamos there, doing a ton of damage to these archers. Unfortunately, it did not take out the Rusty Arrows, which probably would have been the most important target to deal with. We get a nice Loons coming in from the 8-peak Loonies, going to be hitting through those Silver Helms just a bit, but now the mobility for the High Elves is going to be starting to get into the back line of the rest of the Greenskins here, and that Arcane Phoenix doing a ton of damage to that Giant Trollhag, with that bonus to the weakness, or the fire damage, having that bonus against that Giant Trollhag, and almost shattering her. She does have regen, but another hit is going to be enough to put her down. The wad does go off, but I don't think there's going to be any saving that Giant Trollhag at this point, as that Arcane Phoenix doing quite a number there. And so far, the rest of the Greenskin army is kind of in tatters right now. Balance power is definitely in the favor of the High Elves, and another Burning Head is going to be going right on through these Night Goblin Archers and hitting the Force Goblin Spider Riders, which is going to be routing off those units of Night Goblins, and that is another beautiful Burning Head, and is going to be just roasting all of these units, routing off 3 units off of that cast there, and it's going to be continuing off, almost clipping these Night Goblin Archers. But otherwise, yeah, things are definitely looking pretty grim for the Greenskins. They do have the Orc Boy Biggins, who are trading really well into the Silver Helms, but they definitely need a bit more support, because if they do go, that is going to be it for the mass of the Greenskins. They don't really have a whole lot of good tools to deal with that Arcane Phoenix, and especially if it does get its regrowth, that's going to be even harder for it to finish things off. And now the High Elves are just kind of content with chasing down all of the routing units. You see these Rangers pressuring off these Orc Biggins, which is a very expensive unit to be losing, or not necessarily expensive, but a very very useful unit that they don't want to be losing so early on, because they do need that infantry. And the Giant Trollhag, surprisingly, is still alive at this point, is routing and regenerating through it, but getting very close to the edge of the map there. The rest of the fight, though, is just continuing. You just see the plenty of High Elf units left, and there isn't a whole lot in terms of the Greenskins. The Orc Boys are back. I think there was some more units off on the side, so there is a trio, or these Orc Biggins and these Orc Boys, and definitely some units that need to be brought back to the fight here. Do not want to be losing them, as we get another Fanatics cast going right on through the Spearmen. So I think these are those Night Goblin Archers, the Fanatics, which you don't see if you are on the other side. And a nice charge, though, from the Force Goblin Spider Riders, which is pretty much just going to be sparing some time for those Night Goblin Archers. But they do actually get a few units still getting through this line of Force Goblin Spider Riders, and almost ended up actually routing those Night Goblin Archers. But it isn't quite over yet, but definitely Heil favored at this point. Shadow Warriors are still sitting pretty. They have a little bit of ammunition left, but I think the biggest threat is going to be that Arcane Phoenix, who has finally been able to chase off that Giant Roar Troll Hag, but took a long time in doing it, and it looks like we are beginning getting an overcasted, well, there was going to be an overcasted, but the overcasted damage actually knocked down the Night Goblin Shaman, which did cancel that cast, and unfortunately, I do believe that also reset the timer and used up the Winds of Magic, which is a little annoying, little bug there for the spellcasting. Now, if you have a horse mage, that does prevent that from happening, but a little foot guy going to be getting staggered and blocked out of that spell, at least for the time being. Now we take a look at the battlefield kind of from a more zoomed out perspective. The infantry on both sides, actually at this point, is probably Greenskin favored with these Orc Biggins and Orc Boys coming back, but in terms of like the monsters and the mobility department is going to be favored for the High Elves. Now, while Skarsnik does have bonus versus large, and he does have the Spite of the Bad Moon, which does give bonus versus large, and there is another Vindictive Glare arcing his way up towards that Archmage, doing some nice damage there. But now the Arcane Phoenix going to be looking for its second trophy to be added to, and making a very nice hit onto that Night Goblin Shaman, and following up by a second hit, going to be terrifying that Night Goblin Shaman, and might be able to route the Fermented Fungi does go off on that Arcane Phoenix, which is, well, would have been nice to get it to Rampage, but unfortunately its health was not quite low enough, but there it takes just enough damage, and it finally does Rampage, not before it does get another hit into that Night Goblin Shaman, causing it to rout. And with everything all grouped up, we're going to be getting another Burning Head. Going to go right through all of this grouped up infantry. And once again, roasting all of these units as the Force-Count Spider Riders get routed off. The Orc Biggins get routed, and that is going to be looking to be the final nail in the coffin. Doing a little bit of friendly fire, but I think that is just going to be about it for the Greenskins. It looks like the High Elves going to be taking the second point of the day. And that is just about it. Army losses on the very fringes of popping here. Honestly, if the Arcane Phoenix just turns and went for Skarsnik at this point, I think that would pretty much be enough to trigger army losses, even though, I mean, he does have that bonus versus large, but not necessarily the best duelist for large monsters. And in the Arcane Phoenix, especially with all the spear support and even the Shadow Warriors, now that they've used up all of their ammunition. And there's, I think this is the first one we've seen that the Arcane Phoenix's bombardment spell, I guess you could call it, as it drops in, providing a little bit of a flame storm. And yep, that is going to be it. Satsuma withdraws, and QSA takes the second point of the day. So I'll update that scorecard, and we'll go over how things did for both sides. So for the Greenskins, the mobility department doing, I mean, they paid for themselves for the most part, except for one of them, but they just didn't have, I think, enough of the rest of the support. The Savage Orc Pagans did all right, and unfortunately, the Rusty Arrows, which normally you can see these guys getting well over 1,000, take a pretty much do absolutely nothing, taking the brunt of some of those burning heads. The rest of the guys not doing so great either, and then just kind of taking a quick look at the rest of the infantry, again, just getting really beaten down by those Rangers. The Rangers did very, very well, and especially paired with like the Burning Head, good cycle charges from the Silver Helms, did some nice, decent work. And of course, we have that Arcane Phoenix, while not paying for itself, definitely provided a lot of value in dealing with that Giant Roar Troll Hag and the Night Goblin Shaman eventually. And then we just kind of take a quick look at how the rest of things did real fast here. The Shadow Warriors getting 900, and then the Rangers doing some nice, decent work. And then, of course, we have the Archmage of Fire getting 1,800 with 3 very nice burning heads. We're able to clean out a lot of the heavy hitters. So that's going to be it, though, for this match. So we'll switch back over to the main screen, and then we'll get our next match underway. And we'll update the X's this time around. Are we turning this into another pineapple pizza conversation? Alright, so if Ulrich's around, let's see. Alright, Ulrich is here, so There he is. Get the invite. Wouldn't know anything about, like this Satsuma food. Yes, I did say pineapple pizza Aristodemus. All right. So I see Aldercrawl in chat. You should have gotten the invite. Oh, and here he is. All right. So for this next match, it is going to be Wood Elves against Skaven. So the Wood Elves is going to be headed by Aldercrawl. And the Skaven, of course, is going to be with Hadries. So both sides, well, Hadries particularly is going to be on his main with the Skaven, and Aldercrawl is very proficient with the Wood Elves. And I think for this particular matchup, the Wood Elves do have a slight advantage. Maybe a little bit, well, actually, I was going to say a little bit less so with the changes, but both sides did get hit by some changes in terms of units, and I think the Skaven probably got hit a little bit harder than the Wood Elves, at least in terms of what they use in every single matchup. Like for Skaven Slaves, getting that cost increase is definitely going to help going a little bit wider. The Brood Horrors as well, which I did like taking in this particular matchup, and losing that melee defense and also getting a little bit of extra cost increase is definitely going to hurt. So looks like Aldercrawl is ready. And then we're just waiting on Hadries, and we'll be getting right on in to our third 1v1. So far, QSA has taken the first two. So both sides ready, so let's load on in. Alright, so switch on over to the main screen as we do load on in. Yeah, both factions are still very, very strong at this point, even with the nerfs, and it's kind of one of the reasons why they got it. That's usually what happens anyways when a DLC comes out. Their units that they get is really, really strong, and they have to rebalance it. It took them a little bit longer to rebalance it, but they still did get that balance anyways. So for the Skaven, being led by Hadries, we do have Deathmaster Snickich going to be coming on in. He does have an Assassin with a Plague Priest coming on in as well. So Plague Priest does have the Vermintide and the Pestilent Birth. With the Pestilent Birth, once I can get onto it, did get a little bit of an increase in the Winds of Magic, so now it costs 16 Winds of Magic. The Vermintide still costs the same. The Assassin is going to be coming in with Rival High Talisman and Assassin Trophy. Deathmaster Snickich comes in with, I believe I am seeing the Whirling of Weeping Blades, if I can get that out. So that was really good against kind of some like Cavalry, for example. It'll do very well against a nice tightly grouped of that. Otherwise, we do have the Deathmaster Sigil. And of course, he does have his Concealment Bombs and Slippery as well, giving a little bit extra melee defense to boot. Now, for the rest of the units, we do have some Wolf Rats off in the back, going to be protecting that Warp Lightning Cannon. We still have the Avalanche Mortars, no less, the ROR Mortar Crew, which I believe did stay at the same price. However, the Mortars did get a little cost increase and a Poison Wind change as well, but we do have 2 Mortars in total, and we have 4 Poison Wind Globadiers. So 4 of these bad boys are going to be rolling in that front line, and then it is just going to be Skaven Slaves in that front for the rest. Can't really expect to be affording too much more when you bring in that many Poison Wind, and then there's also some Night Runners on the flanks as well. So now let's swing on over to what the Wood Elves do have. So we do have a pair of Waystalkers, both with that Arrows of Kurnus. Going to be coming on in with that, so they'll have a few charges of those, going to be looking to kind of snipe out either characters or going to be trying to go for like the Poison Wind crews to boot. We do have Deepwood Scouts for the artillery or for the archery, and then Glade Riders with Wild Riders mixed in for the mobility. Lots of mobility for the Wood Elves, and then 4 Dryads with the Spellweaver of High coming in with Apotheosis and Soul Quench to snipe out even more characters and items. And Soul Quench will do quite well against that Warp Lightning Cannon. Shots are going to be raining in on that Spellweaver. Now, this isn't It Gets Zap Zap, so that's not going to be having that ability recharge. Yeah, it's like VC has a lot of good matchups, but they also have a lot of really bad ones. Soul Quench, first shot coming on in and lands just short of the artillery crew. So that shot is going to be fallen a little short. You usually don't see that thing falling short, but I think with how the artillery crew was positioned at that time, it did allow for them to pretty much dodge that. Not something that artillery crews will be able to repeat often enough. And now all the Deepwood Scouts going to be firing on in, but the Avalanche Mortars and the Poison Wind Mortars probably going to be following up their shots in due time, because these guys are going to be definitely wanting to focus down those Deepwood Scouts if they can get those shots off. And the first volley is off into the air, going to be arcing its way through, going to be landing amongst this unit here, and is going to be making connection, and is going to start doing a nice little bit of damage to these guys. Won't be doing quite as much, but the Warp Lightning Cannon crew is doing a lot of damage to those Wild Riders with shields. On that first volley there, we do get a summon of Clan Rats, just kind of keep things visible here. All of these Deepwood Scouts do have stock, so they need to be kept visible, and that's kind of what that summon's going to be for, just kind of keeping them pretty much just spaced out from the rest of their units, and then, yeah, again, just keeping visual. Another Soul Quench going to be going through, peeling off a couple of the Poison Wind Mortar crews, doing a nice job on that shot, and the the Gutter Runners with poison with the Night Runner is going to be coming on in to that Spellweaver. It's going to be keeping her away from that Warp Lightning Cannon crew, as the Arrows of Kurnus, though, does arc its way, doing a ton of damage, taking out one of the artillery pieces, and then that is going to kind of free up for a nice little charge from that Warp Lightning or from that Spellweaver, getting right on top. Might be enough to rout them off. They do drop their artillery piece to kind of keep them nice and safe, but on this far flank, both of these Wolf Rats with poison do engage with the Wild Riders and the Glade Riders with spears, and just as the Wild Riders were about to rout off, they do manage to maintain, but these shots from the Avalanche Mortars might be enough to break them, and how close they are to that white line might be enough to cause them to go straight for that, but they do get a little charge in, going to be charging those Night Runners and Gutter Runners, trying to stay as far from that white line as possible at this point. One of the Waystalkers does get caught out, though, by the Assassin and Snicketch here, going to get completely shattered with that Assassin Trophy also popped, and now the Plague Monks summons coming in two of those Deepwood Scouts just as its summon does dissipate. But now all of these Poison Wind crews going to be just deleting these units of Wild Riders here in the back. They do get on top of it, but unfortunately, while they only were able to get rid of the Warp Lightning Cannon crew, everything else just completely focused them down. And the Mortars, the Poison Wind Globadiers, all of it just cleans up the mobility. So there is still mobility left for the Wood Elves, though, as there is those Wild Riders and these Glade Riders off on the far side, and they have been able to avoid all damage so far in this battle. But yes, the Skaven are looking pretty strong at this point, as the Wood Elves are just going to be slowly kind of keeping their distance at this point. They don't really want to be getting too close to all of that Poison Wind, but at some point they are going to have to try and get into all those units, and with how few mobility units they have left, they're not going to be able to shut down every single one at a time, so there's going to be at least some units still free to fire. The Avalanche Mortar is trying to clip these Glade Riders in the far, but they do pull back, and those shots are going to land just a little short, and they are going to continue to pull out of their range. Last few volleys coming on in might be enough to clip in, and they do still fall just a little short. And actually, the Plague Priest is going to be taking another Soul Quench straight to the face, and is getting a little bit farther away from the rest of their units, and might be an opportunity for the Spellweaver to come on in. One of the Wild Riders was able to actually survive that initial onslaught from the Poison Wind crews, and the Skaven pushing forward even farther now, going to be getting into these Dryads. Dryads will win against those Skaven Slaves, but the Skaven Slaves just need to kind of delay them just long enough to drop these Poison Wind Globadier shots on them. And once again, the Assassin and Snicketch going to be finishing off the other Waystalker in rather convincing fashion, and they make quick work of that second one, leaving just the Spellweaver up in the sky, who's going to be a lot harder of a target to really deal with. But the Wild Riders taking some Poison Wind shots, as they do get a charge into the Poison Wind Globadiers, but that Avalanche Mortar just continuing to rain down Purple Rain onto the rest of those units, doing a lot of damage. But having all of these Dryads, they have been able to break the entirety of the front line of the Skaven. There isn't a whole lot left. These Skaven Slaves here getting pushed back. We do have some returning, but now the Dryads are going to be able to focus down these Poison Wind Globadiers, and while they do take a lot of shots here, they are still going to be able to get onto these units, and getting them all shut down is going to drastically reduce the DPS that the Skaven are going to be able to produce at this point. The Glade Riders with spears are also able to get onto these Avalanche Mortars and the Poison Wind Mortars as well, which definitely need to get shut down, as these Dryads are going to be turning their attention to these guys. Wild Riders coming back from taking a mighty amount of damage earlier on, and the rest of the units are going to get spread out, but balance power is still very much dead even, as there is all of these Deepwood Scouts have enough ammunition left, and they need to start kind of focusing down. I think the Deathmaster is going to be probably one of a very dangerous units for that Spellweaver, though she is dealing with that Plague Priest, so the spell casting is off the field for the Skaven. That is all for the summons that they're going to be seeing, and the rest of the Glade Riders trying to just clean things up. One more of the Poison Wind Globadiers is being taken offline, so has the other one, and now it is pretty much just the Avalanche Mortars. We have one of the Poison Wind Mortars, but the Dryads are just about to get on top of them, but they do end up getting pushed back by these slaves, and the more shots from that Avalanche Mortar are able to kind of clean them out. But still, even at this point in the fight, balance of power is still right at dead even. Surprised to see the trade been so even on both sides. More shots trying to clip the last of the mobility, though at this point, just kind of taking a look at what is left. We have like one unit Dryads chasing down some Skaven slaves, and I think they need to turn their attention more to these last Poison Wind Mortars and the Avalanche crew. They're almost out of ammunition at this point. There's not a whole lot left, and the biggest threat I think is going to be the Assassin and that Deathmaster, because that Spellweaver is not really going to be able to engage with that Deathmaster and the Assassin very effectively. Get a nice charge in by these Glade Riders, though, going to get in, and they do need to be cautious because the Deathmaster does have that Whirling of Weeping Blades, going to be able to do a ton of damage if they do get in contact with a grouped up unit of Glade Riders, and the Poison Wind shots do clip these guys, but they are going to be able to get a nice free charge onto these Poison Wind. So Wicked is going to be up next. Peterborough. Alright, so yeah, the last of the ammunition is actually getting very low on these Deepwood Scouts, so pretty much you cannot be relying too much on that, while these Dryads should be just about in range of the inner radius of the Poison Wind crew. I believe they do have one, though the Poison Wind Globadiers here are able to get back online, and though they are very low in terms of leadership, they still have enough models left to get some shots in, putting that Poison Wind onto those Dryads, and the Spellweaver definitely needs to start getting in and trying to shut down, especially these Poison Wind Globadiers. They have like full ammunition left at this point. The Avalanche Mortars, not really the biggest threat in the world, and the balance of power, though, is slightly in the favor of the Wood Elves here, as more and more of the Skaven units get taken apart bit by bit. Poison Wind Mortars are going to be routed off, but they still have 5 units left, and they still have ammunition to spare, so these guys can't be completely forgotten at this point. And exactly as I was saying, that Wild Riders going to be turning their attention to these guys, making sure that they do get pushed off from the field once and for all, and these Poison Wind Globadiers also shut down. So the last of the range units for the Skaven are finally, after long last, shut down by the Wood Elves. The slow, long drawn out fight finally is reaching its climax here, as the Deathmaster and the Assassin are going to be facing off against the rest of the Wood Elves, and there is actually some Skaven Slave Spears on the very far reaches, and these Poison Wind Mortars do come back, seeing that the Wild Riders are going to be turning their attention, and instantly rout them off once again, as they do get close enough to give them that extra leadership penalty. All right. And we are finally reaching the end. The Wood Elves, yeah, at this point, they're just going to be cleaning up everything else and just allowing the Assassin and the Deathmaster to slowly get whittled down bit by bit. And I think the Wild Riders and the Glade Riders are going to probably be one of the better tools to deal with it. And if they get some nice cycle charging in with that Spellweaver, well, they still have to be very careful of that Whirling Weaklings. And there it is, as I was mentioning before, a grouped up unit of the Glade Riders is going to be taking a ton of damage from that. But now that that is off cooldown, now is probably the best time to go up against the Deathmaster himself, though of course the Spellweaver does have to be very careful of the Deathmaster's sigil, so charging in is pretty much you'd have to try and bait that out while still in the air if possible, so to avoid that. But at this point, yeah, the Wild Riders can be charging in on both flanks, and the Glade Riders as well. The actually the Rival High Talisman being saved until the very bitter end of the fight. Very well played, kind of keeping that in that back pocket. Is going to be reducing the melee attack by 40 for all of these units, which is pretty much going to be reducing it down to pretty much nothing. It is nothing on those guys, and keeping them out of that range. The Spellweaver does pop in, and that might be time for that Deathmaster Sigil. And as I'm saying that, down it pops, but all of the Wild Riders do charge in, keeping the Assassin away from that Spellweaver for as long as possible, and that is going to allow her to pull right back up into the sky and cycle charge once more back into that Deathmaster and trying to finish him off. He does have Slippery, so giving himself a little bit of extra melee defense to boot on top of that. And now both the Assassins are a little separated right now, so a charge in by that Spellweaver is going to be knocking down the Deathmaster. Other Assassin is coming in, charging, trying to deal a blow or two to that Spellweaver, and if they are able to get some blows off, it might be enough to bring her down, but there's just so much cavalry, so much infantry left. And the infantry support for the Skaven is just so far away, and the Deathmaster getting wavered might be enough to rout, and does rout, and with him gone, there's no way he's going to be able to come back to this fight, and he actually does just outright drop. I think he just gets shattered, and down goes the rest, and army losses take a hold, and the Wood Elves finally pulling forward. So RTK is up on the board, so I'll update that as well. So now it is now 1-2, going into the last of the 1v1s, and then we'll be getting into the 2v2s right after that. So for the Wood Elf army here, nice, long, patient play, did very, very well. The Waystalkers did get some nice bit of damage, but both of those Assassins were just so quick to deal fatal blows to both of those. Once they did get on top of them, those concealment bombs, definitely very, very helpful. Mobility was exceptionally helpful on the Wood Elf side. One of the Glade Riders getting 1,400 in total value, more than all of the other of the Wild Riders, the much more expensive Cav, and Dryads did some nice, decent work in the end. And of course, the Deepwood Scouts were able to kind of shut things down, but nothing too exorbitant except for this one unit of Glade Riders. As for the Skaven side, the Wolf Rats, I think that was probably one of the only misplays, is they tried to like group up all of that cavalry and just nuke them with all the poison wind. But unfortunately, losing these guys so early on drastically hurt their mobility game in the late game, so they really couldn't contend anything. While the Avalanche Mortars getting 2,300, Poison Wind Crew is getting 11, and then all of the Poison Wind Globadiers, maybe just a little bit too much on these guys in terms of numbers, but otherwise still did some decent work. And then Slaves, not really going to be expecting a whole lot. The Assassin did some good work, and then Snickage getting 1,600. But that is it for that match. So let's get back into the main screen, and then we'll get our next, and they are already in the lobby and ready to go. So GG to both sides on that last game. Nice long drawn out game. Very well played there. So, yeah, sad rat noises. Amy trying to jinx Bob here, saying that he's going to win. But yeah, this is going to be Lizardmen versus Tomb Kings. We have Wicked on the Tomb Kings, and we'll also update the board, because we have the score. Actually, I thought I updated the score there. I gotta find out where that score is. Okay, so the score is updated, and that was technically game 2. There we go. And that Pillar of Bone for the map. Alright, so yeah, for this particular matchup, Tomb Kings generally have the advantage here, or has had the advantage. They have that the Bowshopti are very strong in this matchup against Dinos, and they have a lot of other tools that deal, like the Necrosphinxes, for example, do very well against the dinos of the Lizardmen, and they have like Tomb Guard, who trade very well into the infantry of the Lizardmen as well. So they kind of have to work with kind of what you got. So like the Chameleon Skinks, you have Pterodons, which are a particularly useful tool here, though Shopti can do a lot of damage to them even from the ground. You still have to be wary of like Sepulchral Stalkers. But then you also have, like, I mean, Hunting Packs can also do some decent work, because they can fire into the tightly packed Tomb Kings, and the Tomb Kings, that's kind of one of their biggest weaknesses is how tightly packed and how low armor they are. So spells like that can take advantage of that type of unit are kind of very useful. And that's not necessarily fire magic, but... So, sounds like I jinxed Hadri's there. But yeah, you're probably not going to be seeing any fire magic from the Lizardmen. It definitely doesn't synergize too well with the rest of their roster. But with both armies loaded... Oh, speaking of which... There we go. With both armies loaded on in, let's go over what they have. So we have on the Tomb King side, we do have 4 Carrion up in the sky, looking to counterplay that Pterodons. So they'll be doing a nice, decent bit of work with that one. And if they are able to get into melee, they will probably trade very, very well. Now, the rest of the units, we do have Skeleton Spearmen for that front line, mixed in with just some Skeleton Warriors. And it looks like it's just going to be some cheap chaff infantry for the most part. We do have the double Ushapti Great Bows, and we also have some Skeleton Chariots going to be throwing into the mix with 3 Skeleton Horse Archers for that skirmish. For the Lord, we do have Cetra the Imperishable. He's going to be up on his War Sphinx, and what he is going to be bringing is... So he does have the Nero's Incantation of Protection and Nero's Incantation of Cursed Blades, which is pretty much the standard spell for the nice low-costing spells to be casted with that Restless Dead lore passive, which does give a nice little bit of passive healing to all of his units. And then he is going to be paired with a Lich Priest of Light coming in. I believe, if I can get a look at him, I believe is going to be having the Net of Amnitok, and that is all he is going to be bringing. And then for the Lizardmen forces, we do have a couple Chameleon Skinks going to be up in front. We do have some more Skink cohort with Javelins on the far flanks, and up in the sky, we do have the Pahak Sentinels, the ROR Pterodon Riders, who do have a nice bit of extra missile strength. They have 96 compared to the 75 of the regular ones. And then there is going to be, for the rest of them, just some Pterodon Riders, 3 more of those. We also have the Colossadon Hunters for Protectile Riders ROR, who are armor piercing, bonus versus large, and they also have, I believe that is an ability that gives Rampage, though it does cause them to get a nice bit of bonus to their their melee defense, or not melee defense, their base weapon damage and armor piercing weapon damage. And especially on the Tomb King side, giving a Rampage on something like that, not really that big a threat, because you have like the Red Crested Skink Chief, which actually doesn't have the same ability that all the other ones has. So it has the Focus Instinct, so it just stops Rampage. So that's all you need to do with those Riperdactyl Riders. And then it also has the Opal Amulet, giving 22 damage resistance, and he is nice and cheap when he has only these abilities. So pretty much, and he is bonus versus large armor piercing, gives poison, so he does have his utilities here. And then he has a Skink Priest of Heavens as well with harmonic, actually not harmonic convergence, no, it is harmonic convergence, and the Wind Blast. So Wind Blast, as I was saying before, the tightly packed Tomb Kings definitely helps a lot there. Frontline is going to be, sorry, I need a little drink here. And so for the front line, it is going to be Skink cohorts mixed in with some Saurus Warriors. Mostly it's just Saurus Warriors and a few Skinks on the sides, but very wide in the infantry department for the Tomb Kings, or for the Lizardmen, going against a very ranged build on the Tomb King side. So that's going to be our armies, and both sides going to be advancing now. Jeez. Sorry about that. Throat's a little parched. The Necrosphinx, so the War Sphinx, which is what Cetra is on, is bonus versus infantry. The Necrosphinx is the one with the 2 massive blades on it. That is anti-large. And it is one of the best anti-large duelists in the game, besides like Shaggoths and the like. So it's very strong against single targets. Like against Cetra would, or I guess against like a Carnosaur would easily win in that engagement. So Lizardmen right now just going to be pushing on forward here as the Skeleton Horse Archers and the Ushapti Great Bows are going to start firing in, and the Ushapti Great Bows are going to be targeting the Pterodon Riders, and this is the Chosen of the Gods as well, so it does have that spread shot, this one right here. So it has the spread shot when it's firing in, so it's normally used against like infantry because it does hit a lot of units at the same time, but having that spread shot is pretty much a nice little flak fire for that anti-air. But now as the Saurus Warriors are going to be pushing forward. If they are able to get into melee with all of these Skeleton Spearmen, they're going to easily win in that infantry department. The rest of, the Carrion are really going to have to try and screen out these Pterodon Riders as best they can, but with the Riperdactyl Riders, they're going to be able to trade very well in that department, as they are taking apart these Carrion up in the sky, as both of these units getting beaten very, very decisively in that department, as the infantry is now going to be closing that distance, and the Ushapti Great Bow, all of the mobility for the Tomb Kings really need to start doing a lot of work if they're going to be able to thin out the ranks. The Chameleon Skinks and the Skink cohort still staying in reserve at this point, while these Carrion are chasing off those Pterodon Riders, but there is that Wind Blast going right through that front line, doing a ton of damage to those Skeleton Warriors, and the Ushabti Greatbow need to pull back just a little bit more. Etc. is going to be charging on through these Saurus Warriors, doing a lot of damage there. And the rest of the units are going to be slowly moving forward, though these Colossadon Hunters do get netted down, and that is going to allow these Ushabti Greatbows to turn their attention to the skies and do a nice bit of damage to them. But being up in the sky, they are going to be able to have a little bit of a harder time hitting them, and the rest of the Pterodons do dive down on top of these Ushabti Greatbows, shutting them down. And the Colossadon Hunter is kind of feigning a charge in, as the rest of all of these, Skeleton Horse Archers are going to be turning their attention, and they will all of these units together will be able to bring down those Pterodon Riders and even the Colossadon Hunters, who are a glass cannon unit. And he does pop that Toad Rage, which gives Rampage, but is immediately followed up by that Cold Blooded, but instead decides to stay up in the sky and definitely needs to kind of charge down into these Skeleton Chariots. And there's a little bit of a funky ability here, is they're just kind of like refusing to charge into those Skeleton Chariots there, but the balance power is maybe slightly in the favor of the Lizardmen at this point. The infantry for the Tomb Kings is going to be getting broken down bit by bit by the Saurus Warriors, who are very good once they are engaged with melee, but the threat, of course, is when they getting just shot to pieces on the way in. And Cetra the Imperishable is chasing after these Chameleon Skinks, while the Red-Crested Skink Chief is actually trying to nip at his heels. And of course, he does have the bonus versus large and armor piercing with poison as well, which it does help, but he's not going to be in a 1v1. If Cetra turned and fired an attack, he should be able to win, but instead I think he is going to be charging the Skink Priest of Heavens here, getting a little weak charge there, as I think just kind of trying to path his way back to the rest of his units. The Colossadon Hunters do get netted once again, and allowing these Ushabti Greatbow to continue firing on up. Balance power has been brought right back to the middle, as both sides having taken quite a bit of damage so far. The Skink Priest of Heavens has taken a decent amount, and the infantry in general, all of the Saurus has taken quite a bit, but they've been able to eliminate quite a bit of the spearmen, all of the skeleton warriors, and is kind of down to the Ushabti, who are being pushed farther and farther through the trees here, as they are getting chased down by the Saurus warriors as they just methodically break their way through the rest of the chaff infantry. We do get that Ushabti summon down, is going to be able to do a lot of good work to those Saurus warriors and holding them back for as long as possible. We do have the Hopak cohort, which I did miss from earlier, the Cold One Spear Riders getting routed off the field. And these Skeleton Horse Archers do have that Neru's Incantation of Protection, which gives that 44% physical resist, as the Pox Sentinels do get pushed back up into the sky and are going to be routing, though they are back in it once again. And things looking far from decided at this point, though. A beautiful Wind Blast going to be going through the full length of these Skeleton Warriors, doing a ton of damage to them as they try and get through that tree line to get into the rest of the units. The Red-Crested Skinks still doing alive and well. And in terms of ammunition, the Skeleton Horse Archers are getting rather low, but the Ushabti have been able to pull back and are in a nice little bit of a protected location here, as Cetra was able to kind of escort them out of the way of danger. And now that is going to free them up to have some space to start firing away once again into firing in against the Pox Sentinels, for example, and all the other Pterodon Riders. And these Pterodon Riders, finally coming back from being chased for the entire map, have a bunch of ammunition left, and having all of that ammunition in this late game is going to be very, very helpful, because all of the tools necessary to deal with these guys, with the exception of the two Ushabti, are getting very low in terms of ammunition. The Skeleton Horse Archers are getting very low, and there's no more carrion left on the field. So really, the Lizardmen just need to kind of deal with the Ushabti Greatbow at this point, need to try and get on top of them, stop them from firing in, but the mobility of these Skeleton Horse Archers should be able to kind of keep them at bay for quite some time. The balance power is in the favor of the Lizardmen here, as the ammunition is slowly getting spent bit by bit, and there's still quite a bit left in terms of Saurus Warriors, but there isn't a whole lot. The last of the infantry, though, is finally disintegrating into the ground for the Tomb Kings, but they still have some spears off in the far flanks. And things just kind of slowly collapsing upon the last bastion of the Tomb Kings. The Ushabti Greatbow getting dived down by the Pox Sentinels, have used up all of their ammunition, and the rest of the Pterodon Riders coming in with their rock drops, dropping some bombs in. Not really doing a whole lot of damage, pretty spread out formation by all of the Skeleton Horse Archers and the Ushabti. But now they're just going to be pretty much just staying up in the sky, firing away, and really the Colossadon Hunters need to dive down and just shut down the Chosen of the Gods probably first, and then go for the rest of the Ushabti, because at this point there's nothing close by to really counteract them. They should make very quick work of these units, and even popping Toad Rage doesn't actually cause them to rampage here, because they've rampage still affects based on that HP pool, but there goes that rampage on the second one as they do get low enough. And so once again, actually just how quickly those Chosen of the God have taken damage there, and this time the Colossus Riders were actually able to get their charge in. I think I've seen that a couple times this match where they really weren't able to charge down for some reason or another, and that Red Crested Skink Chief is chasing down Cetra, and Cetra actually running from that just little skinky boy, does have that focus instincts to stop Rampage. And I mean, just that armor piercing bonus versus large and poison has actually done quite a bit of work so far this fight. And yeah, balance power now heavily in the favor of the Lizardmen here, as the last of the Ushabti are finally disintegrating, and there's army losses. Cetra now going to be falling back to the ground, and that will be our final 1v1 as RTK evens it up 2-2. So we'll get the scorecard update, and then we'll take a look at how things did on both sides. I think the Ushabti would have done quite well in this matchup for the Tomb Kings. So the Tomb Kings at 1200 and 890, so not as well as I had thought. They were able to fire for most of the round, but they used up a little bit over half their ammunition. All of the carrion, unfortunately, got taken out, and that was pretty much the counter, or the hard counter, to the Pahak Sentinels, and with them gone, they had that kind of that free reign where only the Ushabti and the Skeleton Horse Archers were able to deal with them, and they just didn't have enough ammunition. I mean, the Horse Archers did do quite well. The Chariots did well on that one unit, the other one not quite as much, and then, I mean, just the rest of the Chaff Infantry not going to be able to hold up against the Saurus. And then Cetra the Imperishable only getting 593, unfortunately. So that's just... he's just pretty much chasing or being chased throughout the course of the fight. I think he just needed to stay in that frontline engagement. Something needed to support these Skeleton Spearmen, because they weren't going to be able to win against the Saurus. And as you can see, that just did quite a bit better than the Tomb King infantry. And then even Skink Priest of Heavens had some nice wind blasts. Red Crested Skink, he's getting 680. I think he costs 750 when he has those, all like his base unit cost is like 750, so he is quite cheap. The Colossadon Hunters getting 1600. The Hopak cohort getting 1000, and then the rest of the Pterodon is not doing all too ridiculous well, but just having all of that constant poison being applied throughout the course. Very good work on that side. So that's going to be it for the 1v1s. So that means we are now into the 2v2s. So I'll free up some extra spaces in the lobby here. And then we'll update the board. There we go. So both sides trading very evenly in the 1v1s. And now we get into the 2v2s, as each of these is going to be worth 2 points apiece. So we'll have Vicious Satsuma and Yumei's on the High Elves and the Dawi side for the RTK. And then they will be against QSA's Dark Elves and Empire forces. And this map is going to be on Southern Chaos Wastes. Oh shit. All right. So on QSA, it is going to be Arcidemos and Reginald Puggington. So let's see if I can... I don't think I have Reginald added yet, so I might need to send him my friend code. Let's see. So for the next one, it would be... mean, J Phoenix and Bob again, if we want to go for the next 2v2 if Aristo is busy. So, I mean, we can do that if that works out. And, of course, the funds is at 10k. I mean, if Aristo was to just go to make a cup of coffee, he should be back, unless he's making some elaborate brew or something like that. I'd be just fine to wait until he gets back. Well, I mean, if he just left, then we can go for the other matchup then. All right, in that case, we'll switch over to the other one. Yeah, Wicked, we've done quite a few. I mean, since I've started, it's been, I want to say, I mean, at least like 5 different, this might be the 5th one, I want to say, or something around that. At least since like September, I want to say. All right, so yeah, Wicked and A-Move. Lobby is up and ready to join if you want to hop on in for the, I guess, the second 2v2. So the map on that one is Blue Reach River. There we go. So this matchup is going to be Vampire Counts versus Lizardmen against QSA, or not Lizardmen, Vampire Counts versus and Tomb Kings versus Lizardmen and Greenskins on the QSA side. So we got Wicked on the Greenskins by the looks of things, and then we'll have A-Move on the Lizardmen. Yeah, and for VM, because we did EC as well. And then we did Sons of the Mountain on top of that before that. Because I think it was Sons of the Mountain first, then EC, VM, ITO, and now QSA. Ouch. And now we have Tweedledum needing to go off to dinner here. Yeah, I guess you guys can't see the lobby, so wait, switch over. Wait one sec. There we go. So I guess, yeah, Bob needs to go eat, so we'll might be taking a little bit of a breather because I'm waiting for one of these guys to come back. So, Bobby, now you need to head on out. Okay, so Bob says he's got to take like a 15-minute break. So, I mean, because if Aristodemos then comes back soon, we can just go in and play that series or that match. Otherwise, hopefully he comes back soon, because otherwise, yeah, 15 minutes is probably a little too long to wait for both of the 2v2s. And yeah, Aristodamos is in the 3v3 as well, so probably going to be waiting for Aristodamos to come back, and then we can get on into the first 2v2 as what we're going to do. Alright. Well, hopefully Aristodamos gets back soon. Otherwise, Prince did say we could do a quick 1v1 if we don't want to be just sitting around waiting for the whole period here. Bob Rip Tresh. Off to dinner. I guess the can't control schedule too much. just like real sporting events, yeah. Just a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with the 2v2s or something of that nature. Let's see if I can see. Oh, yeah, hey, Wicked. So, yeah, I think at this point, since we're still waiting, we'll give a little mid-game entertainment. So, Prince, if you can hear, yeah, we'll do a little quick 1v1 while we wait. Visa heads suck. Alright, so we're going to do a quick little game with Prince. Alright. Alright, we'll get into... I'll do a quick little 1v1. I'll be playing Prince here. Alright, set the map to something real quick. There we go. Alright, quick little 1v1 while we wait. And if history has shown anything, me commentating at the same time is going to go very poorly for myself. But we'll give it a shot, see how it goes. At least this match is just for fun, so... And of course, as we start, Aristodamos is back. Well, we'll still play it out real quick here. So yeah, while we were waiting, since both of the 2v2 teams had delays, we decided to do a quick little 1v1 to kind of pass the time. So we're just going to do a quick little play, and then... Alright, so it's going to be a quick little Counts versus Bretonnia. It's a little fun build I kind of like using here. So, pretty much just going to go for a little rush here, bringing the Red Duke for a little good fun. Couple Pallies in the sky, Fey Enchantress, Grail Knights, questing.
with haste. Swiftly.
Swiftly, with haste. Strike them! Swiftly, our time is now.
With haste. Mortals quail. Swiftly, with haste. By my will. Swiftly. Soon, my legions, soon. With haste. Swiftly, with haste. Swiftly, with haste. Hearken, blood. Vampire Lord. Vampire Lord. Lead them. All
Sorry
right,
for the
Batman.
lack of commentary for the most part. Trying to focus a little bit here.
With haste.
Alright, just down to paladins left.
Swiftly. For Sylvania! With haste. Swiftly. Nightmares ride.
Alright, I think that should be just about it. So that's going to be it for our mid-clan war entertainment, and we're going to get right back into the main event here in just a second. So yeah, and for the next one, so Aristodemos, Reginald, and then Satsuma and Yume's, we will be getting underway in just a second here.
Night has fallen. Fear the night. Very well.
And there it is. Blood Knights did pretty good. Dogs did very good. 1,000 on them. Even Red Duke did pretty good work. Jeez, the Paladins. Alright. Alright, I will now host that up again, and we'll get into... Nice to go easy. Alright. Lobby is up for the next round. Switch over to the main screen again. So yeah, High Elves versus Dawi, and then Dark Elves and Empire. Or not High Elves versus Dawi, High Elves and Dawi for this next one. Alright, so we got Yume's in the lobby, waiting on the rest, and just double check. I don't know if Reginald can see the lobby. I'll just send him. All right. Yeah, this next map is going to be on Southern Chaos Wastes. Change the font size. And there we go. Careful, Ultima of Ultimate Darkness on last minute map switch. I don't think we're going to go with that one. Not a good map, unless you're a melee faction or something like that. Even then, it's like artillery and stuff, so you can't... What? Hey, Bob. Well, you didn't miss much. Since everyone was out and about, we kind of just went for... I just did a quick little 1v1 versus Prince. So that's all you missed. Uh-oh. It looks like lobby is stuck. Might need to quick rehost then. Alright, I'll try rehosting real quick. Alright, reopened the lobby. Oh! Pug, I think actually I know what it was. Puggington, you might have joined the wrong lobby. That's possible. It might have been remnants of the 1v1 lobby that I had. So I might maybe need to redo this one and just rename the lobby to get it to work correctly. Oh. Alright, well, I guess I'll hop in the other one, so... Can play a little ring around the rosy in terms of lobbies. Alright. Misclick. A likely story. Alright. So it looks like all sides, or everyone but Reginald, is readied up, so we'll be getting right on into the first 2v2. So it should be some good fun here. So yeah, High Elves, Dawi, and then Empire and the Dark Elves. So expecting probably a little bit more, probably decently heavy range on both sides. I mean, both of these sides, the pairings is rather similar to each other because you have the two elf factions, so they have a lot of similar units here. And then we have Empire and Dawi, which both have artillery pieces. They have some good ranged units and stuff like that. So it very well could see a very similar build between both sides in terms of what they're going for. You do have a little bit better cavalry with the Empire and Dark Elves, but otherwise I think for the most part, you can field fairly similar things. Like Empire can go with like demis and stuff like that to contend with any Silver Helms, Dragon Princes, and stuff like that. And they should be able to win again in that particular matchup. But then you have, in addition to the Dark Elf cavalry, is kind of where they're going to be able to take the advantage on that side. And then we're going to be, so the Dawi and High Elves are going to have tools to counteract that. You have Slayers on the Dawi side, so they can provide some good bonus versus large there. So we are loaded in, so we'll switch the scene on over, and we get into our first 2v2. So a little bit probably longer series than usual due to our little intermission that we had. At least it wasn't devoid of any entertainment. All right, so for the High Elves and the Dawi, we definitely have some very heavy range. So we have 4 cannons in the back line. We will have a Belgar Ironhammer as the Lord. He's just going to be bringing his base kit, so he's going to be dirt cheap. We do have a couple of Slayers. And then once all the other units have gone away, we will be having the Ekron Miners, the ROR Miners with blasting charges. We do have some Dwarf Warriors, just some more Dwarf Warriors, some great weapons. We have a pair of Thunderers, a pair of Rangers as well, and that's it for the Dawi side of things. So no Rune Lord, kind of expected to see at least a Rune Lord or a Rune Smith. For the rest of the High Elf formation, though, we have Spearmen mixed in with the White Lions across that front line. They do have a pair of Dragon Princes with the Elven Reaver Archers. For the Lord, it is going to be Alariel the Radiant coming in with Tempest, Earthblood, as well as the Star of Averlorn. So that's it for the RTK side. And now for the Empire and Dark Elves. So we do have a Supreme Sorceress of Fire up on her Dark Pegasus, and being up on the Dark Pegasus, it's going to be really good for that Fireball and Burning Head. So the Fireball is going to be able to help snipe out the artillery pieces. And then we do have a couple of Harkonneth Executioners thrown into the mix, and then we have Spearmen for the State Troops, going to be mixed in with some more Dread Spears. Very, very wide formation here, as we have triple actually 4. So 4 Hellstorm rocket batteries going to be firing on in, and that's kind of what you see when you have Empire versus Dawi, is they'll bring a bunch of artillery pieces to kind of counteract the play from the artillery on the Dawi side. And then with that Supreme Sorceress, they might actually be able to trade fairly well, because we have Balthasar Gelt coming in with the Hounds as well as Searing Doom, and he does have his Staff of Volans with Arcane Conduit. Now the rest of the mobility force for the Dark Elves is going to be, so he has some Cold One Knights mixed in with some Dark Riders, more Cold One Knights, Dark Riders, and Cold One Knights. So definitely in terms of numbers, they have the advantage against the Dragon Princes on the High Elf side, but in terms of quality, the Dragon Princes, the Cold One Knights, they should still be able to, they do have that bonus versus large and armor piercing, but the Dragon Princes are going to be very fearsome foes in that particular engagement. And if they have, especially the healing is going to be the biggest thing, because there is no healing on the Dark Elves and Empire side, so that's going to be one of the big things for that Cav fights. But otherwise, yeah, that's it for the armies. We do have a couple of the Silver Bullets, a couple of handgunners as well. Well, that is going to be a very wide formation versus a little bit more tightly packed one on the RTK side. But that is it, so let's get things rolling when both sides are ready. Bob has returned from the timeout. Welcome back. Anyway, so both sides ready. We are getting off to the races. So the artillery is going to be singing on both sides early on. We're going to be seeing the rockets' red glare flying through the sky, and the cannons will be trying to counteract that as best they can. And really, it's kind of going to be more of a weather the storm, I feel like, for against the Hellstorms. They should be able to focus fire down enough of them to really do a major amount of damage with 4 cannons. I mean, it's 4 Hellstorms now. It's going to be kind of a focus on both sides. We do have a fireball going off, though, from that Supreme Sorceress. The Ariel is trying to screen that one out, but they do kind of pull it back, but it's too little too late. Once that fireball is cast, it does not matter if you take your crew off, though actually, no, it says that all of them are gone, but, or it says there's still 3, but there's definitely, looks like one of them got taken out right there. Feel the fear. Actually, the cannons must have been targeting Balthasar Gelt early on, because he has taken quite a bit of damage early on. I can't imagine that would have been a miscast already if on anything, as the rockets do start to sing, as they're going to be landing some shots very widespread, but they are going to make a little bit of connections with the cannon crew and these miners, doing a nice bit of damage on that front. So yeah, the cannons, it still says there's 3 on this one. But there is not 3. There's only 2 left on these guys, despite what that number may say. So only 2 cannon crews can be firing away. Another fireball probably going to be coming in fairly soon, but Ariel is going to be keeping that Supreme Sorceress of Fire at bay. So just making sure, just trying to keep it, but another fireball is going to be arcing its way in. Ariel might actually want to try and tank that if she can, but unfortunately she does miss. She does get a Tempest off, though. I don't think she wants to stick around for that, because all of those, the Silver Bullets in particular, who do have stocks, so they kind of get a little bit of jump, and the fireball on that time does land just a little bit short. So the Tempest is going to start do some damage, but for the most part, I think Ariel really wanted to follow up in melee in that particular fight. Yeah, just the continually spread. So this is kind of what the Hellstorms are brought to do, is get rid of these cannons as they did, because they're routing the units. They're not destroying any of the artillery pieces, but they are going to rout them off. The only problem is the ammunition on the Hellstorms is very low in general. So while they will be able to rout these guys off, I doubt they'll be able to keep them off those artillery crews for long, because they're probably not going to be able to shatter. And as you can see, the widespread, all these shots landing in, not a single one is even... Okay, there's some that are going to be landing amongst the artillery crew, but for the most part, those shots are going to be landing missed, and another fireball goes just astray of those artillery pieces. So a little bit unlucky with those fireballs early on in this fight. Legion Reavers on the far flank trying to maybe get around the Dark Elfin Empire, but they're just so widespread that getting around is just going to open them up to getting completely isolated if they do even attempt it. Cannon crews are about to rout off one of the Hellstorm rocket batteries, have taken out one of the artillery pieces. But, I mean, at this point, you're just taking a look at the ammunition that's left on the Hellstorms. They are being able to... they have a lot of ammunition left. One of them has used up quite a bit of it. But otherwise, we have the Rangers actually moving forward and following up with a Tempest. They're going to be focusing down Balthasar Gelt here. So the second Tempest goes down, dodging some shots from these handgunners. And Balthasar Gelt's right about half health. He does drop a Searing Doom down on these Rangers, but the Rangers are able to pull back just in the nick of time. And more shots continuing to rain amongst the artillery crews of the cannons. One of the artillery crews has returned, though this one does end up getting routed, and only 7 of them left, and they are going to be completely shattered here. So that's one of the crews gone. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a too bad of a thing, because this fireball coming in, if this is able to take out one of these artillery pieces, this crew can just abandon this piece and go off to this other crew over here, and then they'll be able to fire on all 3 models, considering they don't lose too many of their crew, which is, I think, one of the big threats here, because they don't have a whole lot left. I think they only have, like, what, 3-4 models left in terms of the crew, so they wouldn't actually be able to field all 3 in that regards. But this kind of just very patient artillery duel so far. Balance power is actually in the favor of the Dawi and the High Elves at this point, though only slightly. And if the Hellstorms are able to actually finish off these artillery crews on the cannons, they might actually stand a chance at kind of pulling things back, because then they'll be able to use the last of their ammunition on the rest of the Dawi and High Elf army. Because at this point, things are going pretty well. Well, in terms of like the infantry and like the Rangers, they've been able to do some nice damage to Balthasar Gelt, been able to screen out a lot of the Supreme Sorceress of Fire's shots, and pretty well just getting lucky, I guess, on those shots against the artillery crews. And the cannons taking quite a bit of, or the crews taking quite a bit of damage as more and more volleys of rockets continuing to fly. And I don't actually, is any of these the Sunmaker? So one of these actually is the Sunmaker. I should have noticed that one early on, and it only has like 1 volley left, and the Sunmaker is a lot more accurate than the rest of the Hellstorm rocket batteries, so we'll be able to trade a lot better into the crews. This crew is getting on, it's very low in terms of leadership. Only a handful of Dawi man the artillery pieces. I think they're only able, actually they are still able to man all 3. And now the Thunderers opening up into these Cold One Knights as they do get a little close, and they take a very vicious salvo right through their ranks, taking a bunch of damage there. Dwarf Warriors now is trying to probably screen out all these handgunners who are now trading with the Thunderers. And the Thunderers are very heavily armored themselves, so the armor piercing from these handgunners will be able to do decently work, but the Thunderers will just tear through the handgunners on the Empire side. Very patient play, though, both sides. Artillery crews reaching. This crew has quite a bit of ammunition left, though these guys have used up all there, so now they are just glorified chaff infantry, maybe waste a few volleys of either Thunderer or Ranger fire on them, and then these guys using up the last of their shots as well. And if we take a look at what the artillery crews on the Dawi have left, so they do have one crew here, they have another crew on this piece here, and this crew is routing with only 3 Dawi left in it, and they may actually be able to come back, and if they do, then yeah, they're just going to be able to continue firing away once again. Last of the shots fired from that Hellstorm. 2 more Hellstorms left to fire, and I think they should be able to win this artillery duel, but at what cost? Because they are taking a lot of damage. I mean, this whole battle is just so spread out. There's just so many fronts to be fighting on this one. Alarielle, though, has taken a ton of damage right here from these handgunners. Not damage that she wants to stay on. It's not the end of the world either, because she does have her Star of Avalorn to heal herself up, and it's just continually hounding the Supreme Sorceress to fire. Now, she will win that particular engagement. Well, there's just so much, like the Silver Bullets in particular, the Silver Bullets, the handgunners, she just probably doesn't want to be too close to these guys, and I think they need to be kind of some of the focus of either the Rangers or the Thunderers themselves. But a Fireball this time now going straight for Alarielle, taking a lot of damage from there. Now she's going to have to heal up, and I think is going to be having to spend that first Star of Avalorn pretty soon here if she doesn't want to get sniped out too early on, because at this point she's not going to die from a Fireball, but she doesn't want to get any closer to these handgunners until she gets a little bit of extra health back. Balance power, though, is just still slightly Dawi High Elf favored, but only slightly, and things going... actually, things do look rather well for the QSA side, considering their Hellstorms are now going to be able to fire wherever they want to at this point, and are going to be starting to target these Dragon Princes, doing some nice bit of damage to them on that fire. But the problem with that is... Actually, I was going to say those things did fire damage, but they do not, because Dragon Prince is very resistant to flaming attacks. Though a nice little collapse here by the Dark Elves, as they are able to kind of bog down one of the Thunderers just as their Cold One Knights do get in. And here is that Star of Avalorn, and actually Alarielle is not actually inside that radius of circle right now. Actually, no, she is over. It's just her shadow that was outside of it, but she will be getting some nice bit of healing there, and just giving some healing to the Dragon Princes and the White Lions to boot as well, just because it would be a little bit of a waste to use it just on herself. And with that, she is pretty much all topped off with one more Star of Avalorn to go this game. Dawi High Elf infantry starting to engage across the board here, and the infantry department, with the exception of the Harkonneth's Executioners, will go the way of the Dawi and the High Elves. Spearmen against Dread Spears might not be so one-sided, but like the Dwarf Warriors, the White Lions, they'll be able to clean up shop on all of the rest of the State Troops and the Dread Spears and Bleak Swords for the Dark Elves, though the Harkonneth Executioners will be that big threat to deal with. And while the White Lions will be able to kind of punch through their armor a bit, it is not quite enough. Murderous Mastery does go off, or Murderous Prowess goes off, Murderous Mastery for some, does go off on the Dark Elves, and they will be getting a nice little buff to their melee stats here for a short period of time. So yeah, the scoreboard is still 2-2. This is the first 2v2. We had a little mid-game break that didn't count towards that score, so it is still accurate at 2-2. This is the first 2v2. Nice Searing Doom into these grouped up spearmen here, but still all the Dread Spears getting pushed off or shattering here. These guys going to be routing, those Dread Spears going to be routing. So overall, once things have been committed to melee, things are going a lot better for the High Elves and the Dawi. And the Dawi themselves, their cannon crews are back online and firing away. Not a whole bunch of ammunition left, but it is still something. Dragon Prince is starting to get into the back line, though there's some handgunners here to deter that just a bit. And Harkonneth Executioners, both of which are very depleted at this point, and it looks like we are going to be getting a nice Burning Head, going to be arcing its way through these Slayers, as well as the Dragon Princes. I mean, Dragon Princes will essentially take no damage from that, but the Rangers definitely do not want to be anywhere near that, because they have lower armor compared to the rest of the Dawi, but it does run them right into these Dark Riders, and it might just cause them to outright rout at this point. They'll balance power heavily in the RTK side at this point in the match. Pretty much everything getting kind of either pushed back or routing for the Dark Elves and the Empire. And they just don't have the, I guess, the staying power to deal with all of like the Dwarf Warriors, the Slayers in particular, because all the Dark Riders can be a bit of a problem. Though Fireball does connect with Alarielle, who is now at her healing cap, and I have not seen the second star of Avalorn yet, so there is still that, though she won't be getting any of that healing. The Dragon Princes, however, will benefit greatly from that, as will the White Lions of Trace. And there's another Earthblood just going to be healing up some of the Slayers as well, which is generally one thing that the Dawi don't get, is a little bit of extra healing, and that's always going to be nice for their units with their pretty decent HP pools per model, so they'll be able to actually benefit from that quite a bit, especially Slayers who are unbreakable, making it a lot harder to deal with them. It's because the Dark Riders getting pushed off, Gelt and Stream Sorceress still being pretty low in terms of HP, but at this point you see both of the Silver Bullets and these handgunners getting compromised by these spearmen, and with them getting continually pushed off, there's just not enough infantry or mobility to screen these guys out from making sure that these handgunners are going to be pretty much be offline for the rest of the fight, and that's pretty much going to be the end of their way back into the engagement, as there is that last star of Avalorn healing up the Dragon Princes, giving them a nice bit of health, and with that pushing that balance of power even further and further against the QSA side. And so balance power is now borderline on army losses, and I think there they go, and RTK does take the first of the 2v2s, so that gives them an extra 2 points, so that will put them up to 4-2. So let's update that. So there is still 5 points left on the field here. Now, if RTK is able to win the next 2v2, that will put them out of reach of being overcome in the 3v3, but if QSA is able to take the next game, it is going to be up for anyone in the final 3v3, which is always kind of up for grabs. Can't really predict that one way or the other based on the factions or even who's playing in that one. But let's go over the armies real quick from this one. So the Dark Elves, the Screen Source of Fire actually did very well. She's quite cheap when you bring her as a lord, and doing very well with those fireballs throughout. Was attempted to get sniped out early on, but was able to stay nice and alive. However, the mobility, I think, was probably the biggest, I guess, not necessarily misplay, just unfortunate event for the Dark Elves, is they get like 0 value across the board, and having them all gone. I mean, the Dragon Princes, you look on the other side, I mean, they didn't even do that much value. It was all like the ranged units on the High Elves and Dawi that did a ton of damage. Hargoneth Executioners, only thing on the Dark Elves that really did a whole lot. Now, if we look over at the Empire side, Gelt's getting 1,200. Otherwise, everything else not really doing all too much. Handgunners, though, they did quite well. Silver Bullets getting 2k in total value. A lot of that was to Alarielle, almost taking her down at one point. But those Star of Avalorns really did help her stay in that fight. And then the Hellstorm Rocket Battery, 1,700 on these guys, not too much on the Sunmaker, 1,400 on those. And then for the High Elves, I just kind of quick go through these units here. The White Lions were able to kind of punch through, but again, that didn't really do all too much work. I think the Dawi line was probably what got most of the value. Cannon crews getting a ton, and then the Thunderers doing some decent work, 1,300 on these guys. Rangers doing some pretty good work too, and then Slayers were a very good deterrent in that late game, especially being unbreakable. I mean, they had so many models left at the end. Those Earthbloods were really doing quite a bit of good help. I mean, you got Belegar, who there wasn't a whole lot of engagements near him throughout that fight. Very good game there, so let's switch over to this, and then we'll get the next one set up. So we got Tweedledee and Tweedledum coming on into the lobby. So we got Jay Phoenix and, of course, Bob on the Vampire Counts and Tomb Kings. So let's update the board to show that. So we are now, see if I get this right. There we go. So we have Tweedledee and Tweedledum on the RTK, and then we have A Move running on in as Teedly-Doo, and then we got Wicked. So Wicked must have missed the memo on the name changes, but we'll have Wicked and A Move going to be on Lizardmen and Greenskins, so it'll be a good fun matchup there. Definitely the benefit for the Counts and Tomb Kings is the healing across all units, and then Lizardmen, Greenskins have a lot of large units to really do quite well with. Saurus will trade well for the most part, but having all of those big dinos and the oh, the map. Yes, the map. Oh, wait. I can't change the map. JP, you're the host. You get to change the map. So, let's see. It's supposed to be Blue Ridge River. Uh-oh. Oh, crap. So I crashed. So we'll get right back into that. Don't start without me. The joys of Warhammer multiplayer lobbies. So much fun. Pup's nice and relaxed. Always nice to see that. Okay. Let's see, where are they? Just tremendously fun to use. Expensive units, but good fun, and they do have their uses. Alright, loading on in to the second 2v2, so 2 more points on the board, and this is technically match point for RTK if they are able to pull through. That will give them 6 points on the day, which is enough to clinch it, but we're of course still going to watch the 3v3 for all of its good fun that it'll be having. And so far, everything has been going really smoothly, so with in terms of like just performance on both sides, like there hasn't been any lag in the lobby, so that's pretty good sign for the games to come. Loading on into this next game, though we are working with, well, A-Move didn't actually, yeah, we haven't had too many problems in terms of loading in, even with A-Move's computer, which I know he's had some slower load-in times, but things looking all right so far. Oh yeah, switch the scene on over to the main one. There we go. And we are... All right, and still waiting on the load-in. Yeah, I may have jinxed that load-in time when I said that things have been going so smoothly so far. Yep, as I was saying that was exactly it. Shouldn't have said anything. Should have just kept my mouth shut, and it all would have been just fine. Oh, we'll just take a look at the lovely scenery in the meantime. But this is a rather large map, though, so it'll work well for 2v2. So you do have all these forests kind of dotting the perimeter of the map, so you'll have space on both sides of the forest if you really want to kind of go skirt around it, if you're kind of worried about any artillery pieces. But there's plenty of inside, yes. But here we are. We are all loaded in now. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So for RTK on the Undead, we do have double Boshopti. We have the Kepra Guard, some Skeleton Archers with the Blessed Legion of Makath, or however you pronounce that. The weird pronunciations of the Hecarim Legions, and some more Skeleton Spearmen. So yeah, that ROR Skeleton Archer does have Armor Sundering, which will be quite nice against like the Dinos or any of the larger units on the Greenskin side as well. If you maybe fearing black orcs as well. A couple black knights, some fellbats up in the sky. So we have Cetra the Imperishable on his or on his War Sphinx, and then we have a Tomb Prince coming in on his chariot, and he does have bonus versus infantry when he's on his chariot. He has bonus versus large when he's on foot or on horseback. Now he does have his Guardian ability as well as Tomb Strike and the I believe that is the Rampaging ability. If I can get back to finding him after he has disappeared. Keeps on moving. But we'll get back to him. So we have 2 Vargals for the Vampire Counts. Front line is, of course, going to be zombies. Nice, cheap chaff infantry. There we go. So yeah, he has the Curse of Dejaf, which is that Rampage ability, and yeah, the Blade of Setup, not the Tomb Strike. So Setup gives minus 30 armor and minus 22 physical resist to an enemy. And then for Lords and Heroes on the Count side, we do have Isabella von Karstein. She is going to be on foot this time. Now, she does have her nice ability, which is that Blood Chalice of Bothori. So that restores up to 2496 hit points, gives 36 vigor. It does have a 2-minute cooldown, but it can target Lords or Heroes. So that means both sides. So that means the Tomb Prince, that means Cetra, and both of these White Kings, who are going to be rolling in with their Scabscrath. Going to be a nice little chaff clearing tool on those guys. We also have Invocation and Raise Dead with the Master Beguilement, minus 40 melee attack, which is also a very nice unit as well. Will help in duels, especially against the large dinos, taking their melee attack very, very low. And then we have the Unyielding Will on Cetra, Incantation Cursed Blades, Protection, and Incantation and Desiccation with the Blessed Blade of Patra, which does imbue fire damage. A couple of Fellbats in the sky to help chase things off. And now for the Lizardmen and the Greenskins, we'll go over them real quick. I guess they are readying up. We have some Saint cohorts with javelins on the backside here. Otherwise, most everything is going to be vanguarded forward or in the tree line waiting. So we have Savage Orc Biggins in here, the Arachnarok Queen. We have a Dreadsaurian rolling on in. This isn't the Pharaoh one. This is the big Kahuna, as he does have those skinks on the back giving poison around him. We have the Star Chamber Guardians, the ROR Star Chamber, that do have magical attacks themselves, so against any of the ethereal units on the Count side, that would do quite well. We have a Slime Mage Priest of Life, going to be healing up all of the big dinos. So I believe we see Earthblood in there. We have Regrowth, I imagine, Shield of Thorns, and then of course we have all of the Slan's abilities to boot as well. And then we have Skarsnik, we have the Night Goblin Shaman bring in, actually, that's the ability that hides everything. They have the Night Shroud that gives everything stock and unspottable and an AoE around it. We have the Wand of Jet, so the plan here is going to be to hide everything in this shroud and chase and just all of a sudden pop up behind them. So we have the Orc Shaman with the Foot of Gork, and the Skarsnik is going to be bringing Trixie Trapsies, which affects allies in range. So they're going to be able to constantly give everything stock and unspottable here. Fermented Fungi, Spited of Bad Moon, and then we have some more flyers, the Pox Sentinels. Lots of skirmish mobility on this side. All of the Tomb Kings and Counts are going to be turning to face these guys coming out of the tree line. I mean, Chalice, even if they knew they were bringing the Chalice, it would still be very good even then. It's like you would have to have something that could snipe out Isabella, and there isn't really anything on this side to do that, not necessarily easily anyways. We do have these Black Knights going to be chasing down these Skink cohort, and they should be able to catch them. I think these guys may have been just a little forgotten, though they have some Force Goblin Spider Riders, and if these guys get surrounded, they might actually be able to take those Black Knights out. Just kind of going over, we also have the cohort of Sotex who are unbreakable, and then just more Chameleon Skinks running through the trees, some Goblin Wolf Riders, Morgrav's Mage Marauders, and a bunch more Skirmish Cav for the Greenskin side. But yeah, it's going to be a rather interesting QSA side, QSA army here, and we'll see just how well it works out, because all of these units, if you take a look, aren't actually hidden right here in the tree. So they know there's an Arachnarok's Queen, they know there's a Dreadsaurian over there. They didn't give them that stock and unspottable, which they would like to have had, because everything else is still hidden. But those big dinos, they know they're over there, and so they will be coming. And here is that little surround off on those Black Knights. The Fellbats are kind of hounding them in the rear, but they're getting that charge by the charge into the Black Knights are going to be doing a nice bit of damage. As the Fellbats do kind of dive on top of them, they will be able to push them back. And I think these Skin cohorts will end up routing here. They are wavering here at this point. And Cetra just kind of pushing forward just a little bit, but the shots will be raining from that Bow-Shopti, and they have quite a bit of distance to travel in the meantime, as it's kind of taken a bunch of damage from those Ushapti Great Bows. But the shots going into the Pox Sentinels mean there's going to be a lot less shots, and here is that little group up, and we're going to be seeing everything grouping up and gonna all of a sudden just vanishing from RTK's eyes. They haven't quite given it just yet. Or maybe they did cast it off. It doesn't look like that's been used. Yeah, both sides going to be having Guardian for all their heroes and lords. So you have the Tomb Prince, and then you have the Star Chamber Guardians, I believe is what gives them on the Lizardmen side. Shopkeep Greatbow's just kind of pushing forward just a little bit to continue getting some shots in. These Forest Goblin Spider Riders slowly getting a little bit of a surround off, just pulling the attention away a little bit. We do have an invocation going down on these Black Knights, going to be healing them up from the damage they did take from the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. And the Skaven cohort, who have been able to make it back to the fight here, taking a bit of damage in the meantime. The rest of the Lizardmen and Tomb Kings, or Lizardmen and Greenskins, just kind of waiting in the tree line here, waiting for the opportunity, just kind of whittling them down with all of the rest of the Forest Goblin Spider Riders, just kind of slowly making their way over. But at this point, I mean, you have all these zombies in the front here who are taking all of these shots, and that is a very good trade for the RTK side. They'll gladly allow these zombies to take as many shots as they want, because by taking all these shots, that means that those shots aren't going to be going towards, like, the Kepler Guard, for example. Even the Fellbats don't really want to be taking those shots, because they do want those around to be chasing things. And I think now here they come. They have that Trixie Traps on here, and it's already about halfway done. If we're looking at that cooldown on it, but they are all coming together, and they do not know they have come out of the tree line. The only thing that RTK will know at this point is that there's no more dinos on the map, because they don't hide in the forest. So these guys, I think they have the Night Shroud cast as well, so that's an overcast, which means it lasts even longer, but that did not stay on the Dreadsaurian, who is now visible, and in comes all of these. But yeah, the Dreadsaurian is now visible, did not get caught up in that second Night Shroud, so the Dreadsaurian is now going to be the focus of all of the Oshapti Greatbows and all the other units, as they're just going to be teeing up on that guy. So very few units on the Lizardmen in terms of what they have. For the Lizardmen side, most of the numbers do come from the Greenskin side of things. It looks like we are going to be getting one of the Spider Hatchling summons coming in from that Aratradoc Queen. Going to be kind of trying to get on top of the Ushapti Greatbow, and it does provide poison these guys as well, so that's also a nice little addition to any engagement. They can have that mobile poison, but of course the Ragnarok Queen provides poison with her range attacks as well. Zombie Summon comes down to kind of counteract the charge of the Dreadsaurian and that Ragnarok Queen, and in they come, and in comes Cetra as well with both the Vargulls, Black Knights, everything collapsing upon this location. Even the Tomb Prince is coming on in, so everything is committing to this engagement, and with that, it comes to a halt. Too many things got casted at the same time, because it looks like we also have the Incantation of Desiccation has gone, or is going down at this point. So actually no, the Blade of Setep. So the Blade of Setep goes down, and I'm trying to see, because there is a debuff around here. There is the Incantation of Desiccation, so there is just, and the Shield of the Old Ones goes down, and there is just everything goes down. Flesh to Stone, plus 60 armor, Shield of the Old Ones. The Ragnarok Queen, however, is getting mauled in this engagement, getting destroyed with everything that they got. Still has that Night Shroud, but has all of that, the healing, is trying to heal it back up. It has an Earthblood, Spite of the Bad Moon, so bonus versus large, but that initial engagement went very well for the RTK side, even though it was just a mess in that engagement. There was nothing that, like, there was no rhyme or reason to that engagement. Everything just went in. We do get a Scab Scratch, and the loons are going down as well. The Night Goblins right here, those 8-peak loonies, so that might be the only loon that they get off. They are very low in terms of HP. The Night Goblin Shaman doing his job at this point, so at this point, just getting Wand of Jets is the only thing he is good for. Hawk Sentinels do dive down into the back line, but the Fellbats are quick to respond, and they will be pushing those guys off. And with a little bit of assistance, the Bats will win. They do win against a regular Pterodon Rider in melee anyways, but the Dreadsaurian getting routed off the field, and for a army that doesn't have the mobility to really support it, any of these Black Knights, well, actually they do have the mobility. They have the Forest Goblin Spider Riders, and they need to make sure those Black Knights do not chase. These Black Knights need to stay away from this Dreadsaurian if the QSA sides wants a way back in it, because this guy needs it. He does have a regrowth cast on him, so he is getting healed up, but he's also being chased down, and Isabella von Karsai at this point cannot chase down that Dreadsaurian. She does not have the speed to do so when she is on foot, though as try as she might, she needs something else. Foot of Gork does drop down, doing a lot of damage to the Sternsmen there, taking them down below half health, and all these shots now raining in from the skirmish cav, focusing down this little blob of units here. So the Vargolf's taking a nice bit of damage there, and it does get fermented fungi, which reduces his melee defense and rampages him into Skarsnik, who is bonus versus large. So Skarsnik will be able to do a nice bit of damage, and especially that poison to boot as well, weakening that. And in comes that Dreadsaurian once again, returning from his route, and Isabella and that White King need to get away from that. They do not want to be anywhere near that. They do drop a summon trying to slow things down, and the Black Knights will kind of sacrifice themselves to the Dreadsaurian, and the Dreadsaurian goes very, very well. Yeah, the bats would have been a very nice thing to have sent in a little bit earlier, but they were, I think, currently occupied with the Pterodon Riders. Arachnar Queen is back into the fight once again. Earthblood going down. Ara Quetzal going around the Slann Mage Priest, giving that additional armor and melee defense to boot. But things are breaking for the Greenskins. Just not enough to really kind of hold the line, as all of these units, not a whole lot of infantry support left. Cetra is now kind of 1v, or not necessarily 1v1ing. He is engaging a very isolated Orc Shaman. And we do have the cohort of Sotek in the back line, going to be at least temporarily shutting down the Ushabti, but away go those Chameleon Skinks. Dreadsaurian once again taking a lot of damage. He does have Cold-Blooded, which gives a little bit of extra leadership, but all the shots, especially from the Blessed Legion here, going to be reducing the armor of the Dreadsaurian, and down it will go. This time, I do not think it will be coming back. We do get a Bound Banishment right into the middle of these Blessed Legion, but the Dreadsaurian does fall, and with that is a lot of the major stopping force of the Lizardmen and the Greenskins. Only the Arachnar Queen is really left, and there's just a bunch of skirmish cav. We do still have the Star Chamber Guardians, but they are very low themselves and just getting surrounded and slowly whittled down. I mean, getting charged by the Tomb Prince. We have the Ushabti Greatbow as well, who we doing a lot of damage, but I think that is just going to be about it, because now all of the archers are focusing their attention on the Arachnar Queen and doing just as they did to the Dreadsaurian. Going to be bringing that monster down, doing a ton of damage, and the shots coming in as it does retreat might just be enough to cause it to shatter, if not outright finish it with this final volley. And down goes the Queen, and I think down goes the chances of the QSA in this last 2v2. Army losses are starting to take effect across the board. Slann is going to be routing, as is the rest of the Greenskin and the Lizardmen army, and that is going to be all she wrote. Tomb Kings and the Vampire Counts able to pull through in this fight. And just all that is left is the Unbreakable unit of the cohort of Sotek, and they only have 3 models left, and they'll be getting finished off in due time. Last shots being rained in from all of these archers just to kind of finish them all down. Yeah, it depends on what the use is for, like, if you want, like, wolves will do very well against, like, killing archers. Bats are good for chasing things and dealing with pterodons, which is kind of one of the big problems that counts have against Lizardmen. But of course, you have other tools when you have Tomb Kings involved. So 2v2s, it really does change things, and it is reduced funds as well, so you don't get as many available options, because it's 10,000 per person here for the Greenskin, or for the 2v2s. So take a little look at the after battle reports here. Fortunately, Arachnar Queen got absolutely mauled in that initial engagement. Like, it wasn't like died so very fast. Rest of the skirmishers did some okay work. AP Clooney's unfortunately not as much. Skarsnik actually did 1,300, so that wasn't so bad there. But the Ushabti Greatbow, one of them 2,400. So many good targets for that thing to shoot at. 1,800 on the other guy. Blessed Legion getting 980. Other guys getting 900, 800. Even the Kepra Guard doing a ton of damage, like the Tomb King forces just did so well. Even Cetra getting 2,000. Switch on over to the Counts side of things. The White King's doing some decent work. Otherwise, not a whole lot. The Vargolfs did do quite well. I guess one of them did. One of them paid for itself. The others did not. Black Knights did well as well. I'm going to go over to the Lizardmen side. Pox Sentinels, Dreadsaurian, unfortunately not all too great. Star Chamber Guardians, a little lackluster to boot. But that does update the score as well. That makes it 6-2, which does mean RTK will clinch the win, but we are still going to be playing that 3v3 regardless, and that is going to be the next fight. So Yeah, Dreadsaurian got a little too far ahead of the rest of the engagement there. It was stealthed, and then it got too far ahead for the second cast of the Night Shroud, which was a little unfortunate there. It did make it so one of the big monsters was visible. It was visible, but the rest did kind of drop in as a surprise. All right. We'll see about that, says Arrow for a 9-2. We'll update the final, or the scoreboard, to mark the last one. There we go. Okay, so the next one is going to be the 3v3. So we've got Wicked, Puckington, and Aristemos. So Wicked's now the host, so we'll have to... yes. All right, so while everyone is loading on in, I will be right back, and hopefully everyone's going to be ready to go at that point. And as I said that, I crashed. So once again, I crashed. I will load back in, and then I'll be right back. All right. Oh, man. Once again, the name changes here. Oh, and they messed it up. All right. Take that off. There we go. Alrighty then. Oh, it just isn't gonna happen. They're trying to get the names to be just right. We'll see it later because I don't want to show it because otherwise I'll show builds. When Satsuma's loading in, he's always loading into the middle slot because they're trying to spell out Round Table Knights for their names, but unfortunately, the game lobby just won't allow it. So now it's Table Round Knights. So yeah, this matchup is going to be Skaven, Empire, and Coast versus Norsca, Counts, and Wood Elves. Well, it's not so much joining the lobby in the right order, it's just that the multiplayer lobby just won't let them do it. It's like they know they're trying to be fun, so the lobby specifically says, nah, we're just going to put you in random orders anyways. Alright, so we'll have Vicious Satsuma on the Skaven. You will have Jay Phoenix on the Vampire Coast. And then I believe we have Felix on the Empire side. And then for QSA, Wicked is going to be on Norsca. We'll have Aristodemos on the Wood Elves. And Reginald Puckington will be on his Vampire Counts. So it should be some fun. Definitely going to be seeing a very heavy ranged build for the RTK side, and then getting in for QSA. It's going to be a little bit of a mix, I feel like, because we have like Norsca and the Counts, which are a little bit more of a infantry or a melee faction, where you're pretty much not going to have a whole lot of like long range in anyways, where Wood Elves do have that longer range and that skirmish power, and they do have some decent cavalry as well, so that could be another way that QSA is going to be going about it, pairing the Wood Elf and the Vampire Counts cavalry to be able to counteract, which only the Empire is really able to field any decent cavalry here. You do have the Skaven, which have some decent mobility, but not necessarily something that's going to be good in a straight up cav fight. So should be getting underway pretty soon here. Both sides just kind of finalizing their builds real quick. And then we're going to be getting on into the finale, the best 3v3. Hopefully, I'm not going to say anything about anything else on that. Just we're getting into the 3v3. Should be good fun. Fortunately, we won't be seeing any Sylvanian handgunners here, though it is technically available to pick. It is also against the rules to pick campaign units. But I imagine QSA is going to have at least for the most part, it's going to be a rush. I think you just can't really rely too much on that ranged, even if it is kind of a mobility rush with like cavalry. I wouldn't even be too surprised to see a drop of most of like zombies and the like from the Counts and go for more of quicker units in terms of like crypt ghouls, for example, or just going with skeletons instead, because zombies will pretty slow down that initial approach, and they would and normally want to have those guys in there. And with a map of this size, you're not going to really have the patience, especially against so many ranged units on the Coast, Skaven, and Empire side. You just can't afford to take that approach nice and slow. Oh, they might be waiting for me because I did say I was going to be back. Yep, you can see still deciding on final builds. For the most part, I'd say yes, they would have decided on final builds. But I mean, strategies can kind of change a bit here and there. They might have had like a rough idea of what they were going to be bringing. And I think definitely for like the 1v1s, that's pretty easy to say. It's like, yeah, they're pretty prepared, especially with people who've been playing their factions quite a bit. You're going to have builds saved and stuff like that. But with this kind of format where you have 2v2s and 3v3s, where most people don't play those 2v2 or 3v3 anyways. So like the strategies that really do change, and you have reduced funds. So you just can't bring like a normal 1v1 build and expect it to work. You're going to have to kind of work in, all right, how do you work with this? Like seeing Isabella, for example, on the count side with Tomb Kings, you don't see Isabella normally, but in a 2v2, she actually becomes really, really strong. And this kind of with how different combinations work, where, yeah, as I was saying before, you might have a initial idea on how things are going to be run, but things can always change based on even how the rest of the tournament is going. Seeing, like, because you've seen Bob and Jay Phoenix play earlier on, and they've done X, Y, or Z, so you might expect them to see something similar. So strategies change throughout the course of what you've seen, and that's kind of a little bit of a delay there for that, but hopefully we'll be getting underway pretty soon here. At least I know Wicked's being a little indecisive with his building. I can see him constantly alternating between units. Alright, well, still seemingly undecided on their builds. Yeah, hopefully we get going pretty soon. So I guess in the meantime, I kind of touch base on some news going for, I guess, in multiplayer in general. I know we've got the Warhammer World Championship coming up to the close of its second group stage. That's going to finish up on, is that Monday? Yes, tomorrow at 11 p.m. GMT is the end of the second group stage. A lot of groups have already started finishing up completely. Then the third group stage will take place presumably a couple days after that. And then that'll go for another couple weeks, I imagine. Another week or two after that for the third group stage, and then we finally getting into the final playoff bracket in that regards. So that's going to be good fun, constantly casting as many series as I can for that. So there's going to be a few more in round 2, and then yeah, getting right on into round 3. And I do plan on doing a video that shows the results from round 2 and what round 3 is going to look like, and just a little, I guess, my predictions for round 3 as well, because that's going to be the final group stage, which will then go into the final bracket, which will be all good fun on that end too. So it looks like all of RTK is about ready to go. And then we'll be getting right on into the finale. It'll be good fun there. If Wicked can decide on his build. All right, Wicked has made his decision. So now we're waiting on the rest of QSA. We'll be good to go. Predictions. So yeah, predictions will be on what round 3, like each of the groups for round 3. Just kind of go through each group maybe a little bit more in detail than what I did with my last group 2 overview. So go through all the groups and be like, okay, who do I expect to be going forward into the final? Because we have a lot more stats now on who's played who, how they've done. So we can start looking on it into that regards. So you got to get a rough estimate on how strong each of the contestants will be, who they'll be playing. I mean, their strong factions versus their opponents' factions. I mean, I can only look into it so far because there's still going to be quite a few people left. Because I think, 'cause I want to say there's still going to be like 160 to 70 people remaining in the tournament after round 2. So we'll be getting into round 3 at that point. Hey, Viking, welcome. Just in time for the final 3v3. Should be getting a... So there should be 32 groups in the 3rd round. The top 2 will be going on. That's what I believe is going to be true. I have not... That has not been confirmed one way or the other just yet. So I imagine that's how it's going to be because the final playoff bracket is going to be 64. Even that's not necessarily confirmed yet, but from what I've heard, that's how it's going to be. All right, we should be getting into the final stage as soon. Well, hopefully they start soon. Yeah, 128 would be too many, because with what's left for the group, it's like too much to be 128, and that's such a long playoff bracket. Because even 64 it takes a long time to do. Someone went over funds, but anyway, yes, 128 would be too long to do for a final playoff bracket. I think even with 64, we're hoping that we can break it apart, where we'll do like different casters will live cast the early round 1 and 2, and then the final 16 at that point would all be cast at the same, well, not necessarily the same time, but in the same day. So that would all be run at that point. So yep, we just loaded on in now, so we'll switch on over to the scene. We're finally getting into the 3v3. Everyone has finally made their decisions on how the builds are going to be going. So let's get on into the final game of the day for this clan war. Yeah, the problem with when it gets to the bracket stage is scheduling with everyone, because how the group stages are now is you have 2 weeks to get all your games in, and you can just find times available. When it gets to 128, you need 128 people to be available for either a weekend or 2 weekends in a row or something of that nature. So the scheduling kind of is one of the hang-ups when you're getting with that many people in a bracket. What? All right, looks like we're all loaded on in, so that's a good sign. And the armies, there we are. So a nice wide army, 3,000 on one side, 2,600 on the other. So for the Empire and just the RTK forces, we do have some Empire Knights going to be thrown into the mix for the kind of cheap mobility, some Spearmen, Silver Bullets. We have the Sunmaker and Volkmar, the Grim, with a Jade Wizard as well. Going to be rolling on in with, looks like, Earthblood and Regrowth. Volkmar, of course, bringing all of his abilities there on him. For the, I guess, the Skaven side, we have a couple of Warplock Jezzails. Front line is going to be a ton of Skaven slaves, just kind of spread all the way across. We do have some more Clan Rats in the back line. Then we have some quick mobility too, with some Wolf Rats with Poison, some Poison Wind Globadiers, 3 units of those. We have a Plague Priest of, going to be bringing, looks like we have Vermintide and Pestilent Birth. And it looks like we also Scrying Stone to boot as well. We have an Assassin going to be coming in with Rival Hide and Assassin's Trophy. And for the Lord, it is going to be Deathmaster Snicketch with the Deathmaster Sigil. And then he also has the AoE debuff to boot as well, which is the Cloak of Shadows, -9 melee defense and -4 leadership. We have a Gunnery White on the Vampire Coast side, going to be giving some nice bit of extra ammo to that Sunmaker. We do have some Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs with polearms, and we have the Salt Lord Scuttlers. Oh man, look what we've got here, the ROR Bomber unit. Don't see them, so it looks like they have, is that Armor Sundering is their ability. For the Salt Lord Scuttlers, quite a interesting pick there. And then we just have some Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs for the rest. And we have Clylostra Direfin. I believe, you got to imagine that they brought it. They brought Tidecall, we have Denizens of the Deep, and Song of Enthrallment, and Ghost of the Past. That is a disappointment. We do, Hank, it is 10,000 for each person. But yeah, it is a disappointment seeing no Van Geist Revenge. Unfortunate. But otherwise, for the rest of the forces, just a bunch of zombie pirates. I don't know if there is a Vamp caster or not. Probably don't need it at this point. I mean, you could get some healing, but for the most part, you have a life caster, so I think you don't necessarily need any extra. So that's about it for the RTK side. Now over for the other side of the battlefield for QSA, we have some Wild Riders in the front, maybe some Glade Riders, more Glade Riders with spears. We have a couple of Deepwood Scouts up in the front. We have some Dryads all in this nice long column formation, which pretty much just means they're going to last a bit longer. But if they're going for the rush, then they're probably going to want to go the other way. The Direwolves, all of the Counts units are just in this super long formation here. Direwolves in that nice little Congo line that they can be put into. More zombies, Skeleton Spearmen, we have Marauders for Norsca, more Skeleton Warriors, Great Weapon Marauders even, and then Berserkers will do well at kind of chewing through all of the Skaven slaves, all of the undead on the other side. We have Black Cloaches, well, to kind of get into the back line. We have, of course, a couple of White Kings with Scabsgrath. We have a Lamian Vampire Lord coming in with a Scepter of Stability, or some Magic Resist, and then Raised Dead and Invocation. More Berserkers on the far flank, Spearmen, and then in the forest here is where all the heavy hitters are. So we have a couple of Feral Manticores. We have Wolfric the Wanderer on his Mammoth with Seafang Hunter Champions. Then we also have Marauder Ice Wolf Chariots, who do have Frostbite to help slow things down. Female Fiend of Fire with Fireball, Burning Head, and the From the Mist. And then we also just have some more Glade Riders. So a decent amount of mobility. Actually, there's a lot of mobility here, as we also have an Ancient Tree Man in the tree line, vanguarded forward with lots of things that I see. Earthblood, just quickly go over that while all the armies do approach. So Awakening of the Wood, Earthblood, Foeseeker, Scroll of Shielding, and then Power Stone to boot as well. And he actually does get a Blessing of the Ancients, so improve power recharge rate and power reserves when he is in the forest, and he'll have a lot of space to do that as he just kind of curls his way through, comes into the forest over here. So lots of Winds of Magic on that front. And the Direwolf is going to be pushing forward, taking some shots in the process, as we have some more units. Nice little surprise on the far flank here, and I think there's going to be another one over on this one, so they might be able to get a jump on some units. We have some Wolf Rats with Poison in the far flank too, so we'll see if those Bloated Corpses are going to be able to make a showing of themselves. And while they are engaging these cavalry units, going to be coming upon this unit here, so we'll see if they are able to spot the surprise in the forest, as the Bloated Corpse is slowly kind of moving its way back, and honestly could just try for a little surprise against these Glade Riders, though with the kind of the slow of the lobby in general with all these people in here. that bloated corpse should be at least a little bit easier to dodge from that Glade Rider, and it is actually visible right now, so all of these Glade Riders will know that it's there, and they're probably just going to wait until they get some of their ranged units into range to be able to kind of take care of it, or just kind of dive one of either the Feral Manticore or the Ancient Tree Man will be able to kind of make sure all that damage is pretty much mitigated. And now it's just going to be a rush of the gun line, the mortar line, all of that, as just the massive units going to be descending over the hill for the QSA side triple sword infantry. Triple sword infantry. Not sure which one you're referring to on that. I think I might have missed the demise of the bloated corpse, unless it has been able to kind of pull its way back. I think probably one of the Feral Manticores or something like that was able to deal with it in the tree line. And just the Hellstorm is going to be opening up, doing quite a number on the approaching units here. Those Marauders with great weapons taking quite a few shots, and the Jezzails now also going to be opening up, as well as all of these silver bullets. The handgunners are just going to be doing a number to the White Kings, so they were able to dodge most of that shots. We do have two black coaches in total. Oh, the triple swords on the Deathmaster. Yes, yes. He has his the third sword is on his tail, a little dagger being attached there. So we had, High Elves and Dwarves. We had Counts and Tomb Kings. That's not necessarily lore friendly. So the Marauder great weapons have been pushed back, and even these Dire Wolves have been at least kind of kept out of the things, as the Empire Knights do kind of pull forward. And then the rest of the mobility, though, collapsing on that back line for all of the RTK forces. All of these Glade Riders, Wild Riders, going to be getting on into things. But we are going to be getting a summon of the Rotting Prometheans from Claster Direfin. Going to be coming on in, trying to screen these guys out, as the Clan Rats also doing the same thing. But the Poison Wind Globadiers are going to be taking an initial hit from those Wild Riders, though the Plague Priest is going to be having that nice little drain of its own. Going to be getting a summon off in just behind these Wild Riders, and the Damn Knights Errant as well, so this may be the end of those Wild Riders, as there is pretty much a good surround off on them. I do hear a Sea Fang someplace in one of these far reaches of the battlefield, as things are just kind of getting all underway, more of the mobility circling around, trying to get into the back line, and there's plenty of avenues to do so. There is a bloated corpse here just sitting right next to the zombies. Doesn't actually want to be engaging with these guys, though at this point there's not really a whole lot of good places for that puppy to go. I do hear a burning head, and it's going to be going right on through all of these units, just going to be hitting everything and anything. Going to be clipping through Skeleton Warriors. The Song of Enthrallment is also popped down by Clastra, and Volkmar the Grim running on through, as he does have the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, and he is imbued with the poison damage, kind of getting things down as well. The Ancient Tree Men hunting for Volkmar, but more and more units just kind of flooding into this flank here against RTK, as they are able to kind of hold the tide back, at least initially. But the balance power initially is in their favor, but of course that kind of comes with being a heavy range faction, and as that range slowly gets compromised by the heavy mobility, so you can see the Fellbats have dived down on top of the Sunmaker. Clastra is coming in to assist with the assistance of one of her Rotting Promethean summons. That should be the last of those summons. The Damn Knights Errant is also on the last of their summon as well. And now we have Wulfric the Wanderer coming on in. The Primal High Talisman is popped on all of this, so that does reduce melee attack by -40. And there is just a bunch of heroes here coming on in for the QSA side, just going to be rolling in deep. And there is that Song of Enthrallment, or I hear something of that nature. I did hear Clastra singing a little bit. But with everything focused so heavily on this RTK front, there is this backline, and the only thing really pressuring that is these two Glade Riders with spears, and the Poison Wind Globadiers are just firing into these Skeleton Warriors. These Skeleton, and are probably going to be turning their attention back to these Glade Riders here to kind of clean up this flank, because if they're able to alleviate the pressure completely on this side, that means they're going to be able to turn all of their guns to bear on one side, though Clastra does have the Hunter of Champions hopped on her, so that does reduce her speed, armor, and melee defense, so she'll be taking quite a bit of damage. But Wulfric is a bonus versus infantry when he is up on his Mammoth. There is also that Familiar Battlefield fire, which is going to be getting a nice little burning head right through these silver bullets if they are unable to dodge, and they do get out of the way ever so slightly, so instead of just outright dying, they will be able to just kind of rout, and they should be back. They have enough of their units left, but that was a very punishing fight there. And yes, there is an ECL today as well. But this has been kind of scheduled for a while, so he's kind of went through with this anyways. Sunmaker has been brought back online, going to be firing into some of the zombie-powered deck-end mobs. But otherwise, Balance Power has been brought right back to middle, as things are just kind of getting a lot of damage on both sides. There is another C-Fang going right on through these lines, cutting through as many units as possible. Going to be routing off these clan rats here. Volkmar, though, still running in strong. Though, however, Kalastra is in a bit of a bad spot as he's getting surrounded by both of these Feral Manticores, as well as Wolfric the Wanderer, taking in a ton of damage from those guys. And if he doesn't get any help, things are not going to be looking so good. So he does get a Tide Call in the back, clearing out some of these Skeleton Spearmen, and specifically the Marauder Berserkers, followed up by a Banishment, which very well might break that formation for the Norskins. And the rest of the forces, though, getting compromised. These Jezzail is going to be taking a charge from these Glade Riders with spears, and they are going to be taking a mighty bit of damage from that as these Ice Wolf chariots chasing off these Jezzails, these handgunners. So things not looking actually so great for RTK in terms of what they have left. There's just a lot of their gun crews, and their range is really getting compromised. They still have Volkmar, of course, going strong, and Kalastra is sitting fairly healthy, so he does have the Grand Shield of Faith. Grand Hammer of Sigmar popped on her, and I don't think the Jade Wizard has been taken out of the fight just yet, so some heals might be able to come their way in that case. But for the most part, they still have a very strong core here of units. I want to say the Deathmaster is still alive and well buried in here, as well as the Assassin, and there is that Jade Wizard in that little group as well. So all of these units, though, just surrounding Wolfric. Assassin trophies popped, and that scaling damage from Snicketch is going to be doing a ton of damage on this, but we do get a burning head going to be going through by the looks of things, though it was canceled at the last second. A little stagger against that Female Balefine, but Wolfric does get routed off. He did have the Scepter of Stability on top of him, but he does get routed off. And here is that burning head this time going to be casted, going through the spearmen and all these zombie parties. All these chaff infantry just going to be getting roasted. Yeah, the lag is actually, I shouldn't have said that, but yeah, it's going very well so far. It is a little slow here and there, but for the most part, it is doing pretty good. I mean, that is a little slower on the burning head, but otherwise, yeah, the Deepwood Scouts is taking a bunch of damage so far, but they are still able to get some nice shots in. The Saltlord Scuttlers taking those shots. They'll have a bit of ammunition left, but they have been able to use most of it. Black Coach is going to be hunting for that Warplock Jezzail, going to be getting going right on through these Skaven slaves, not really going to be paying them any attention as it goes right for its target. But this crew right here of units with Volkmar, Kalastra, the Assassin, and the Deathmaster are just going to be able to roam all the way across the field and just pretty much pick off whatever they want at this point. I think the Female Balefine should be the next target. I think yeah, get that Deathmaster, the Assassin, get on top of that Fimir, and then just kind of start going through units one at a time. The Ancient Treeman probably would be the next low-hanging fruit, but Balance Power is in the favor of QSA at this point. Just so many units have been brought low for the Skaven and the coast and all that stuff. Like, all their ammunition is either pretty much spent or they've been routed off the field. So the handgunners, the silver bullets in particular, have used up very little of their ammunition, and the Plague Priest as well getting taken out by that Lamian Lord, or at least being escorted out by the Lamian. Is a major loss as well, but still, yeah, Volkmar, all of these units being very, very strong here in this late game, especially Unbreakable. But Deathmaster Snicketch does get routed off. I think the White King was able to do quite a number on it, and now both of the Feral Manticore is going to be diving in on top of the last Assassin, and they will be able to take down that last one. And if the Deathmaster is unable to return, the White King on horseback trying to kind of go for it, and as well as the Wild Riders should have quite a bit of mobility here in that late game. And they just need to be a little bit careful. I mean, having both the Feral Manticores will allow them to be able to deal with Volkmar in that late game. They have Wolfric as well, but he is so very low. Volkmar shouldn't have any problem dealing with that. And of course, the White King on horseback. Both of the White Kings on horseback are also very good tools to deal with Volkmar, and they need to be careful. And Hunter Champions does go off on Snicketch here, and I think he is just going to be done for this world. He takes a major hit from that Feral Manticore, and both of the White Kings are going to be able to make sure that he is going to be taken care of, and that is going to be it. Yeah, Plague Priest in the far lines here, getting still escorted off by that Lamian, and a few more, a hit or two left is all that he has before he does succumb. And yeah, he's just pretty much dealing with Volkmar and Clylostra. There is the Assassin. The Assassin needs to stay close to these units, while the Feral Manticores are just pretty much going to be these roaming goon squad, especially with the speed of these White Kings on horseback. They have quite a bit of flexibility on that front there, so really this goon squad of 4, even adding both the Black Coaches here, all of these single entities is just going to be such a pain to deal with, trying to get rid of them. Oh, the Tree Men doing some decent damage to that Gunnery White. Gunnery White really doesn't have any more good targets to be using its more powder on, as the Assassin, Volkmar, and Clylostra looking to be freeing it up if it can, though, charging in against the Fimir Balefiend and that Ancient Tree Man. Going to be leaving Volkmar and that Assassin just a little bit behind. But a Burning Head going to be coming in just as the Fimir Balefiend is about to get routed off, so a final send-off as it does kind of pull on back. The Song of Enthrallment, reducing its speed and melee attack. Though melee attack not really the biggest threat here, as it is kind of way down forward, slowly catching up to that Fimir. But balance power definitely heavily favoring QSA here in the final stages of this 3v3. Volkmar getting surrounded by these Glade Riders with spears, and there's just too many answers, especially with Clylostra getting separated from Volkmar. They really did need to stay together, and at this point I don't think it really is going to matter too much. While Volkmar is unbreakable, I don't think it's going to be enough to be able to take care of all of these units. There's just, the Mana Cores are just way too much for, with the Mana Cores and the White Kings alone would be too much. But that is going to be the final send-off. Clylostra singing her final song as she is going to be crumbling bit by bit. She does have that Grand Shield of Faith, but she does disintegrate, and that is going to be army losses for all these units. But Volkmar does stand tall. It is just him left. And now, yeah, he is going to be all that is left to hold back the tide of, well, I guess, the tide of QSA, of Norsca, of the Counts, of the Wood Elves. But he is just going to be completely surrounded by everything and anything. He does get a nice Soulfire Bombardment, which is going to be padding his stats just a bit, but there is going to be no comeback here. Yeah, just the Mana Cores, the White Kings, all of that unit's going to be just a little too much to deal with, as he is going to be fighting, though, amongst the wreckage of Clylostra, giving him a little bit of protection in the rear, though. But yeah, he is just going to be going down once and for all. Tree Men even coming on in, dropping the big tree, and down falls Volkmar, and that is going to be our final game. QSA gets a few points back in the end, which is going to put it up to 6-5, but still RTK will take the series. Let's go over all of these units just real quick here. Lots of units to go through. Wolfric getting a lot of value. The Fimir Balefiend, very nice with the Burning Head. It's 1900, bit of friendly fire, I'm sure. Both with the Feral Manticores, 2000 on those units. Very good work there. Rest of the units for Norsca not really doing all too much. For the Wood Elves, on the other hand, quick go through all these guys. The big mobility, I think, was really a big advantage here with all of these Glade Riders, the Wild Riders. I think that was kind of one of the big factors in this, is that the RTK just didn't have enough to hold back that kind of mobility. And of course, the Black Coaches as well, just very hard to stop. So they were just able to get into all the units that mattered for the Skaven, Coast, and Empire, and the White Kings doing some nice work. Lamian kind of just there, not really too much there. Snake Itch, 2800, lots of damage on value on him. Otherwise, pretty much everything else not doing a whole lot. And I think the Poison Wind got shut down pretty early on, didn't do a whole lot. Even the Giselles, and that was a big loss as well, because those things have a lot of damage potential. Volkmar, 3100, doing a lot of good damage, and the Sunmaker, 24. Yeah, just all of the Empire Knights was just not quite enough to hold back the Wood Elf mobility. And I wish they would have brought Fangeist Revenge. That would have been fun to see. Salt Lord Scuttlers doing some decent work. And even, yeah, Blood Corpse is not really doing all too much. Just a little bit of extra splash damage. But yeah, very fun series. Let's go back to the main screen for the send-off. So we'll update this as well. And there we go. Ace match 4v4. No, I don't think so. That's probably just a little bit too much. very fun set of games. Lots of good competition throughout. Had a little entertainment break halfway through. But yeah, very fun match. Well played to both sides. Definitely very close games throughout. And yeah, just thank you guys all for taking the time to play today. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else that I have to offer here. So if there's any other final comments, otherwise we'll get things finished off here. Nice, just under the 3-hour mark. All right, so with that, I think we'll do a nice little quick send-off. Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you guys all for watching and for supporting the channel. All great fun. And with that, we are going to end the stream. So thank you guys all for joining once again. ECL just finished in front of the ECL, so perfect timing there. And yep, as always, guys, have a good one.